So that UFO report came out. They said they couldn't really explain anything. And a lot of people think it's a dud. So we've been talking about a lot of other stuff. I mean, you got Tucker Carlson saying he's being spied on by the NSA. I mean, that's a huge story, the Biden administration. And we're sitting here and we're being joined by Candace Owens. And we're just having this crazy conversation about the Mandela effect and time travel and UFOs. And I'm like, you know what? Like, well, Candace mentions we should talk about UFOs. And I'm like, we could certainly talk politics. But haven't you talked about politics all the time?
All the time.
Let's talk a lot about the weird stuff, because there's actually some weird stuff. And this is still breaking news, this Pentagon report. So I guess just going to roll with it and just have a conversation about whatever.
Yeah.
Time travel, Mandela effect.
Everything.
Shazam, the movie with Sinbad that didn't exist, but you insist it did.
It did. It definitely existed. Yeah, I mean, you're so right. Everyone always pigeonholes me. And it's like, let's talk about politics. It's like, yeah, I love politics. Let's talk about it. But there's a lot more interesting stuff. And politics is related to everything. I mean, UFOs, obviously, because they've been sealing these reports. And I was saying to you offline that my grandmother, my maternal grandmother, swore until her dying day from the time that we were young that she was walking down the street and she saw a crashed UFO and a little green man came out. And our whole lives, my entire life, she died in 2013 or 2012. I just thought she was crazy. You know, I thought she was absolutely nuts. And I was like, obviously this didn't happen because aliens aren't real. And then it's been interesting now to see them come out and say, oh yeah, these UFOs are real. And just think about how many people lived and saw UFOs, crop circles, whatever you want to call it, and were told that they were crazy, and the government called them conspiracy theorists and called them tinfoil hat heads. And now some of them, many of them dead, like my grandmother, there's no redemption for that. It's just like the government allowed entire swaths of the population to be gaslit, as opposed to just saying, yeah, something's going on, but we can't tell you anything. And then you have to apply that logic to today. And now, who are they calling the conspiracy theorists? Like, is this going to be like, 40 years from now, the craziest conspiracy theorists that we hear now, and they're going to be like, oh yeah, actually that's true, it's declassified.
The report's saying they can't explain it. So it's basically now the one big conspiracy, all these UFOs, we don't know what they are, someone's doing something. Yeah. So it sounds like there was a conspiracy and they admitted it.
Yeah, and they've known for a very long time.
And then, we'll just talk about interdimensional aliens. But interestingly, there is this funny thing that's popped up where General Mark Milley, who's the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff right now, told, I think it was an ROTC class, they'd be fighting hybrid armies and little green men. And so naturally, with the UFO report coming out, this clip is resurfacing where everyone's like, oh, this proves it. And there's like an article from, I think it's from like army.com or something. They're like, no, he's speaking metaphorically. But we'll talk about that. We'll get into all that. We also have Ian hanging out.
Yes, your favorite psychonaut in the house. Thank you, Tim.
Do you want to tell them what you just asked me right before we went live?
Do you like psychedelics?
No, you said, are you on Twitter?
I see a lot of things. Oh, yeah. You do have Twitter, right?
Yeah, it turns out
the real Candace O. I just saw it. Thanks, Candace.
That's how you know, like, the most humbling thing when Ian just looks at you and goes, are you on Twitter?
What's up, homie? Let's hang out like we're 12 again.
That's right.
We all busted out laughing.
Yeah. Dude, there's this thing called walking plasma balls that I've just been reading about where apparently they triangulate lasers from, like, base stations and they hit an area in the sky. And then they cause what looks like a ball of plasma that reads on radar. And so a lot of these things that people think they're catching on radar that are UFOs are actually this focused energy. And now we're talking like, can they do it from space stations? Can they triangulate lasers from outer space to make us? And they keep doing it over these military bases. But there's probably something else to like actual craft that people can get in and out of.
Well, we'll get into all of it for sure.
Balls.
Yeah. Thanks. We got Lydia Chung.
I am super excited about this conversation because I don't think that I have ever heard Candace talking about aliens, and I'm excited to get her out of like her corner. So we'll see what she has to say about this. I'm stoked.
But before we get started, head over to timcast.com, become a member. We will have a bonus segment coming up. It usually goes live around, it gets uploaded around 11 p.m. And that'll be fun. We talk about things that YouTube basically bans you for, and we all know how the game is played. So be a member there. We just hired a couple more people for the newsroom, which will be launching in a couple of weeks. So with your support, we're actually going to be launching a new podcast too, talking about weird, crazy conspiracies. We've been talking about this for a long time. We hired a really great guy who put up an amazing article. You're going to have to check it out if you want to see more. But we have a bunch of crazy stories. There's like birds falling from the sky and disappearing. And of course, it does overlap with a lot of the military news. We've got like Marco Rubio coming out. This was a few weeks ago saying these UFOs, whatever they are, they're a threat to our national security. They fly above our military bases. So there's a breaking news element and an unsolved mysteries element. So we're going to talk all about that again. Go to timcast.com, be a member, but don't forget to like, share, subscribe, share the show with your friends, and let's just jump into this news. So you guys may have seen it, this UFO report. We've all been waiting for it, and a lot of people said it was a dud. Pentagon report says UFOs can't be explained, and this admission is a big deal. It is a big deal. It means they're coming out right now and saying, oh yeah, you know all those UFOs people reported seeing? Well, they are real. We've seen them too, and we have no idea what they are. So now it's just opened up the door to everybody kind of being like, something is happening. We don't know what. Should we be scared?
I want to just quickly clarify. I said walking plasma balls. They're called talking plasma balls. And I think that might be part of what these people are seeing.
So wait, what is that?
It's when you focus lasers from like at least 3 or more base stations into a point in the air, and then it creates like a ball of plasma that reads on radar. And they think that it's a craft because they can move it around really fast. And they're like, no craft can move at this speed because they're just pointing a light.
But do you think our military wouldn't know that?
If they, yeah, they might know. It's crazy. It's almost. I think they're gaslighting the right word? I think that they're prepping us for some sort of like military. They want us to fund the military, be afraid.
Oh, interesting. That's a very good perspective. But then it doesn't explain why so many people for so many years, especially after World War II, started saying that they were seeing, spacecrafts and seeing things in the middle of the night. Especially, I'm the most amazed by crop circles. Like, this is like inexplicable, like perfect measurements, circles, but hit in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night. Couldn't possibly be. They say, oh, it's just a prank, and they cover it up. I mean, there's just been a lot of questions, and the government never answers it, and I definitely, of course, there's always some sort of initiative to get more money from, its citizens. But I've always just thought that they know a lot more than they're ever telling us, of course, because they're the government. And it's too much when it happens all over the world. It stops being conspiracy, right? So it's one thing to say, okay, my grandmother saw this thing, alien spacecraft, and she said a green man came out, and you could be like, all right, whatever. It's your grandmother. She's probably crazy. Cool. But there was also a story, and this one is, to me, the most striking, and you can fact check me on the country. I'm pretty sure it's Zimbabwe. But there was like 51 school children that were playing on the playground, and they all ran inside, and they said they were crying and they were terrified, and their teachers were inside correcting work. I think it was 65, exactly 65 school children. And they all said they described a spacecraft that landed, and this was almost like 30 years ago. And that a little person came out and was looking at them but didn't say anything, but they knew what the person was saying, or the alien, whatever it was wanted them to think in their head, so they didn't need to move their mouth to communicate. And so this happened, and obviously it made a big splash around the world. And so Harvard actually flew in psychiatrists and psychologists into this random place in Zimbabwe and sat down with the kids to determine whether or not this was a hoax, right? And so they isolated the kids, and they spoke to each of the kids, and you can actually watch the interviews of these children so young, and they all kind of look terrified, and they describe what they saw, and he had them draw pictures, and he's interviewing them and asking them, so how did it make you feel? It made me feel scared. They're all talking about it. And he concluded at the end of it that there was no way that this was a hoax, because it's impossible for that many children to lie and tell the same story. And we all know that, kids, they don't have that kind of a memory. They're not nefarious. They can't all tell the same story. And the most interesting thing about that, despite Harvard coming into Africa, concluding that they told the truth, is that now they're all adults, and they did an update interview with them. And they all say that's exactly what happened on the day. That's what happened, in that schoolyard that day. And we don't have any explanation for it other than...
Did you know that since the lockdowns, UFO sightings, paranormal activity has been going up? Reports of people saying unexplained things have been happening. Yeah,
it's weird. I mean, it's just weird stuff. And to me, on the topic of aliens, I've met people, and they're just like, there's no way they exist. And define alien. Okay, it's just, any, I guess, being that we're not aware of. When you say alien, you don't have to say it has to have big eyes or whatever. But I always found it really strange that you really just have to apply a little bit of common sense, that we're obviously not the most intelligent being. Otherwise, we would be like, hey, Tim, let's go to Mars tomorrow real quick, grab something, come back. Let's go on just fly up and look at all the planets. And we can't do that. And not even that. Aliens could be at the bottom of the ocean, right? We can't even get to the bottom of the ocean. So to me, it's weird that there are some people that go, it's just impossible because the government hasn't told us, or we haven't seen it with our own 2 eyes. We didn't even have cell phones. My dad had a beeper when I was growing up. Yeah. And think about how much tech has changed. It's like, we're definitely not the smartest beings, but we're also definitively the most arrogant beings, because so many people are convinced that we are the smartest beings. So I guess we get 1 point for being super arrogant.
I'd bet we're actually fairly stupid. What I mean by that is we can collect data. We'll watch a rock roll on the ground and go, oh, and then figure out how to make a wheel. But that's like the lowest level of figuring out how to invent something.
Right.
So if we can assume that there's other intelligent life in the universe, then they're intelligent. The likelihood that there is a more intelligent species than us is probably
Animals. Think about some of the instincts that animals have, like, dogs. I mean, just they have powers and things that we don't really comprehend as human beings. Like, so again, we are definitively, I'm not saying that dogs are the smartest. I guess you could say, well, they don't live in houses and they don't have air conditioning and all of this stuff. Okay, sure. But they definitely have, a different sense than human beings have. And people don't explore that at all, which I've always found to be really weird.
There are foxes that are like tuned into the magnetic compass of Earth, so they can like aim magnetic north when they hunt, and then they'll like dive on their prey that's under the snow. Incredible.
Wolves. I mean, I love animals. Learning about weird things that animals can do. I'm like, they're almost aliens.
Oh yeah,
sometimes.
sharks can sense electromagnetic energy with their nose, I think.
You were mentioning your grandma told the story about seeing a little green man or whatever. Now, a lot of people probably think something like that's really crazy, but let me pull up the story. We got a few stories that are resurfacing now because of this UFO report. These are legitimate sources. This is ArmyTimes.com. I assure you, this is NewsGuard certified, 92.5 out of 100. Army chief talks little green men and sets off UFO enthusiasts. They claim there's an explanation for this, but here's the quote. They say, this is Mark Milley, who's now the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You'll be dealing with terrorists. You'll be dealing with hybrid armies. You'll be dealing with little green men. You'll be dealing with tribes. You're going to be dealing with it all, and you're going to be dealing with it simultaneously, Milley said. Now, of course, here's what they write. Wait, what was that? Did Milley just say cadets will be battling little green men? And then they go, no. They just mean that there are some countries that have people in the military who are small and they wear green outfits. Oh. So that's what they mean by little green men. And hybrid didn't mean like human alien hybrids. It means something, I don't know.
Not chimera.
I mean, I think for a lot of people, like, they just don't like to apply their brains at all. They're more comfortable believing whatever it is they're told, right? I mean, just like, I always say to somebody, it's like going back 100 years and trying to explain the concept of a cell phone to a human being. Like, it just could never happen. Like, you can't just like pick up the phone and call someone and like, and have them be on the other end no matter where you are in what country. I mean, like, they just can't get their minds around it until it's physically in their hands. And so people's, are just not ready to even think about it a lot of times. And I'm the exact opposite, where like I want to hear everything, because I think it if anything else, it challenges you to think critically, right? And it's such an important exercise to constantly be trying to bend your mind like a pretzel, right?
Yeah, I love the idea of infinity, trying to just understand it.
That was a really
awesome.
Really good point about cell phones, though. Imagine going back to the 90s and saying within, so it's what, iPhone came out 2007? If you said within 10 or so years, you will have a device that can record videos, take photos, you touch it to control it. It can give you access to the summation of human knowledge to a certain degree. You can communicate with other people. You can make phone calls on it. They'd be like, get out of here.
Yeah.
In 10 or 15 years, even when regular cell phones came out, like the Nokia Candy Bar, if you explained a modern, like Galaxy 21 or whatever, they'd be like, no way.
No way. Well, forget that. Like, forget phones.
On
Think
your phone.
about trying to explain electricity to people that were using lanterns to light their homes. Like when J.D. Rockefeller and like that, how he garnered his wealth. Like, oh, we got gasoline and now we got lanterns and this is going to power your home. Imagine trying to explain to those people the concept of electricity powering the world, right? They would think you were a tinfoil hat, a conspiracy theorist, and you would be on the outskirts of society because you're crazy. And actually, interesting little historical tidbit, when, who was it? Not J.D. Rockefeller, the other one of the big guys.
Warburg?
Electricity. It was
Thomas
Thomas Edison, but who funded him? It was bank. Chase
Morgan?
Bank, J.P. Morgan, yeah. I'm like, couldn't get his name. J.P. Morgan. Do you know what happened with the first time Thomas Edison lit? You know the first home that was ever lit with electricity? Do you know whose home it was?
No.
J.P. Morgan's, right? So he invites a small crowd of wealthy people to come in, and he shows them. They come in, so everything's obviously lit by lanterns, and he turns on his house. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And do you want to know what his father said to him afterwards? He said, this is crazy. This will never power the world. Don't invest in this any further. This is stuff that belongs in the circus.
That was J.P. Morgan's dad?
J.P. Morgan's dad. It was the first showing of electricity was in that house, right? So you have to think about history to kind of consider the present. And we still have these people that think this could never happen, and yet it takes the conspiracy theorists, you know, of their time to really push the world forward.
I think they'd say Zeus shot lightning bolts. I think he had electricity.
Right.
Have you heard of the Baghdad Battery? It's this ancient battery. It's a clay pot. You fill it with vinegar, and it has an iron rod in it, and then you wrap it with copper wire, and it produces an electrical charge. And they'd make like 50 of them and line them all up and connect them all to each other. And so like in the pyramids, there's no fire marks because they didn't use fire to light when they were in their building. Apparently they used, theoretically, hypothetically, is electricity to light. They had big batteries. There's a hieroglyph of this guy holding this big, what looks like a tube of like an incandescent with like a filament in it, and then like a slave is like holding the battery behind him or something.
Right. Well, that's actually funny because there's this whole concept now. I'm very into mythology. Like I like, you know, Greek mythology, and I think there's something eternal about the lessons that you learn when you study mythology. But what's interesting is if you consider a lot of mythology and you think of them, you know, even if you think of Egyptian hieroglyphics and stories they tell, the concepts of their aliens could literally just be like a person from 2021.
Have you ever watched Stargate SG-1?
Sure.
Which is crazy. They would have been like, this person's a god. Oh my gosh, this person just made light.
And if the person told them they were a god, then it would reinforce
it. Would
the
reinforce
thought.
it.
You want to watch Stargate SG-1?
Yeah.
That's basically what it's about.
Yeah.
Right. So they find this portal that can open up with different codes to a bunch of different planets, and there's an alien race that was claiming to be gods, and they just had better technology.
Yeah.
So
Isn't that
these
crazy?
people are like, yeah, they think they're gods, and they're just it's magic. It's technology.
I think
Yeah.
about like the angels and the demons from the Bible and how they could fly and had wings. I think they had hang gliders.
That's it.
Swooping in with their, I don't know what, dropping fire, little
Or jetpacks.
flaming oil on people and stuff.
Yeah.
Jetpacks.
Maybe.
That's the crazy thing too. Like when you talk about cell phones, is that when people tried to predict the future, you look at what was that movie? Where Sylvester Stallone goes to the future and everyone's ultra woke.
Time Cop?
No.
I'm so
I never saw it.
I'm so bad at movies.
Yeah,
It's the one where the seashells. We just talked about it the other day.
RoboCop? No.
No. The chat's gonna light up. They're like, dude,
They'll tell us.
yeah.
Give it just a
How do you
second.
Tell
not
us,
remember the name of that
Sylvester
movie?
Stallone in the future.
Yeah, he gets frozen,
With the
and then
shells, yeah.
Bang, that sounds
he
awesome.
goes to the future. Wesley Snipes is the bad guy.
Gosh.
I know
it's Wesley
exactly
Snipes.
what you're talking about. I can't
Yeah.
remember the name of it though.
I've never seen it.
But anyway, like they try to predict the future, and they couldn't fathom cell phones. So like he walks up to
Demolition Man.
Demolition
Yeah.
There we go.
He walks up to a payphone, and it's a video payphone, and that was like the thing they thought in the 90s in the future. The payphones will have cameras, and it's like, bro, we just
Technically
Yeah.
correct.
it's in our pockets. We
Isn't,
don't-
yeah, that's so funny. Yeah,
Yeah.
but people don't think like that. It's interesting. I'm always fascinated by what the human mind is willing to comprehend.
Like, what other technologies are we thinking are going to be centralized that are going to be decentralized in the future?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Energy production, maybe. We have batteries, but like you can't power like
There's
lot of stuff with this.
for a while now. There's been research into materials that when you walk, it causes vibrations.
piezoelectricity.
And it generates a current.
Yeah.
So you could literally have a phone that just charges because you're walking.
Right, but guess what? They don't want that either. So the other way to think about it also is that a lot of this stuff probably already exists, right? And it exists within the military.
Yep.
But the governments don't want to give you that because that gives you too much power, right, within your own home. Like think about the concept of being able to charge your own phone. I mean, that's literally Apple right now. Has become so non-innovative since Steve Jobs died. It's actually like the worst company that still exists. Like it's just waiting. I pray that Elon Musk just kind of takes them out and creates like the e-phone and like because they're not actually innovative anymore. And he's done a terrible job since Steve Jobs died. Tim Cook has. Now their whole method of selling phones is just to keep changing the battery every couple of years. If you realize that, so their model of making money now relies on now you have to buy 20 new cables and things to connect and like you have to constantly charge things all the time, which was the exact opposite of what Steve Jobs' vision was. But Apple would do everything to suppress something that could just charge itself because that's literally how they're making all of their money now, right? So there's also once you're in that sort of big tech bubble, Silicon bubble, and they work so closely with the government and they're fighting for government contracts, like they don't actually want the world to advance to the point where they're not needed. You know what I mean? So like after discovering electricity, like of course they want to make sure they can control it. Imagine if there was something you could just generate your own electricity in your backyard and you wouldn't have to pay Con Edison or whoever it is that you pay. So the government's job is to also make sure that we get tech after they figured out how to profit off of tech,
I think Apple is a really good example of if you look at Apple's inner workings, what you were saying, they don't innovate anymore. It's kind of like our political space right now. It's become tribalist. Why do you buy the iPhone? Well, you got to buy the iPhone. What's good about it? It's iPhone just works. It's better. And that's where we're at with a lot of people being like, here's what I support and why, and they have no real good reason. It's just
well, it's also suppression. So they build the system to suppress new technology from coming in, and I go through this all the time. My husband is actually now making the switch away from Apple, which is great. But the thing is when they were innovative and great and everything spoke to each other and Steve Jobs was alive, it was like, yes, I want the Apple phone, I want the Apple computer, because it makes everything super seamless. But now they're not innovating anymore, so they just want to make it so that, like, well, do you really want to change your computer and your laptop and this cord is not going to fit? I mean, they took away the concept. It was the one thing all the countries agreed on was like the universal headphone cable, right? And Apple took it away, right? So now you have to buy the little piece to connect your thing to, and it's horrible, right? You can't just buy, like, I bought a pair of Dre Beats the other day in the airport, and then was like, oh wait, but now my Dre Beats is not going to go into what used to be universal, and we all agreed on, because Apple needs to make money, so you also have to buy the little. It's horrible. It really is. But this is where it is. Where now tech is actually trying to inconvenience you rather than to convenience you.
You know that I could be wrong about this. I'm pretty sure the first light bulb that was ever like made is still in a firehouse in New York, and it's still going after like 100 years.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I guess what they try to say is, well, the filament was expensive, but it lasted forever. And so they needed a filament that would, so they could sell more. Yeah. And that's
how they make money.
That's right.
I'm looking up the first light bulb.
I still believe, I don't know if it was a conspiracy theory, but like, you cannot tell me that back in the day when every time iPhone had a new phone, suddenly our phones would have issues. And I'm like, this is 100%. Like, don't think I'm an idiot. You think that I think you're so noble that, like, you don't know how to just send out a little bug to the phone that you created to make sure we have to buy the next phone, which, by the way, I was cool with that, updating your phone every couple of years. The charger thing should be a crime. Like, they just have, like, it's not faster. Apple is actually extremely inconvenient now. I mean, just how many cords it takes to make things speak to each other. I honestly think Steve Jobs is like rolling over in his grave.
This is confirmed. Check us out. BBC, Apple fined for slowing down old iPhones.
It wasn't a conspiracy.
Right.
Wow. Conspiracy theory proves. I knew. I was like, this is just impossible. Like, every single time, like, oh, suddenly I'm at the Apple store saying something's wrong. And they're like, well, you can just give you the new phone.
Here we go.
They're just pressing a button, being like, detonate old one.
Yes. I guess what was happening is that you'd get a software update, and then it would gem everything up.
And that's why I never update my phone. And my husband gets so upset with me. And I'm like, honey, I'm telling you, every time I update my phone, it has more issues than solves. Yes. And it's not going to hate the iOS mandatory update. And it's like, but it's working. Why do I want to update it? But it's not new bugs and new fixes. It's like...
Here's the out of context clip already. Leftists are going to put up a clip where it's like Candace Owens criticizes capitalism.
Oh gosh. Yeah sure.
Let's go deeper.
Yeah, because it's crony capitalism.
I got
corruption.
The Galaxy S5, because you could take the battery out of the back, because they were like, oh, your phone's always spying on you. I was like, okay, I'm taking my battery out, worst case scenario. And after the S5, all the batteries are embedded in the machine now. You can't take it apart.
By the way, just made me think about that when you're talking about your phone spying on you. Like, I am always amazed also, like, in taking a look at humanity. Like, I like just like take myself out for a second, just look at humanity and just how foolish we are. Like, there are human beings that have Alexa in their home, right? And they really think that one day, do you have Alexa here?
Right there.
Oh my gosh. They really think that one day Jeff Bezos sat down and said, I really like to help people turn on their lights. I think I need to help them.
No.
It's amazing how much privacy people will give up for a tiny bit of convenience. Like, just get up and turn your lights off, right? And so when this came out, the first thing that came to my mind was clearly they make their money off of selling data. Like, it's also the Whole Foods thing, right? So, like, if you go to Whole Foods like I do, like, now that Jeff Bezos took over Whole Foods, they will literally take, like, you know, they'll say, oh, can you put in your Amazon Prime thing? And if you put in your Amazon Prime, you'll spend $900 and they'll give you 10 cents off. And it's like, clearly that's an exchange happening, right? So they're willing to give you those 10 cents to know everything that you bought and to create a profile about you and what you like and what your interests are. Like, he's not just giving you 10 cents for putting in your Amazon Prime. And obviously Alexa is spying on you. That's common sense. So when these stories start popping up, and I said this right when it came out, I was like, clearly this is spying in your home. They're convincing you to spy on yourself, right? And then those stories came out where, like, the police showed up after a wife and a husband got into a fight, and, like, it's good they showed up. They showed up because there was a man that was, like, beating his girlfriend, right? Not husband and wife, it was boyfriend and girlfriend. And the police showed up, and she didn't say call 911. Right? She didn't say call 911. So, like, the most interesting part of the story was that no one called 911, but Alexa decided to call 911 because did anybody see Smart House in Disney?
No.
Like, come on, dude. Smart House. Did you ever watch that, the Disney show? I mean, maybe because I watched it when I was like 8, but it was the idea of, like, your house got too smart. And I'm telling you, like, that is, I'm like, your house, you just do not turn off your own lights, I guess is what I'm saying. This is a long-winded way to say, hey, internet, turn off your own lights.
Yeah, I've seen stories where they like have the front doors like can be automated by these machines, and for like your delivery person, but like random people were getting access to the house. Or
They have deadbolts that are wireless that connect to apps,
Smart
and you can say to your computer like open the door as you're pulling up, and it'll open it for you.
Nothing. There's now to turn on your oven, your car, all of that stuff, because nobody actually reads the privacy agreement. It's like they can at any time just zap into wherever they want to be, which is why, and by the way, that's a great thing when like a criminal's on the loose and you're trying to find them, and then they can just zap in and find someone. Like there's no such thing now of like the 9-day chase, right? They find those guys in like hours, right? Because the world is so technologically advanced. But the downside of that is that I don't know, people that think that Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates are philanthropists. It's like, guys, they didn't become the richest man in the world. The richest man in the world is not a philanthropist. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
he's selling something.
Yeah,
the dangerous thing about surveillance is that sometimes we do things that are illegal, but we ultimately decide shouldn't be. And if people aren't allowed to ever engage in any kind of rule bending, then you collapse under authoritarianism.
Right.
People eventually become super rigid. I was talking with this hacker, Moxie Marlinspike, and he said it's the easiest way to understand. Look at all the states that are legalizing marijuana. How would people know they wanted to legalize it unless they were breaking the law? Now imagine that concept. Cameras in every room, everyone being spied on. You would never explore that.
And then you get crazy people like Hitler, who I try to bring up as little as possible. He would make stuff legal that was horrible. Like you can't, just because something's legal doesn't mean it's right or even good. It could be horribly, disastrously evil. So, if these things are listening to every word and then they make something illegal, like talking about like us having this conversation.
Right.
They do listen. How do you think it knows when you call its name? It's
Right.
always
listening.
listening.
It's always listening, and people just don't think like that. And like I remember talking to my girlfriend. She's like, "Well, it's just nice." She's like, Siri or Alexa, whoever it is, all these people are in your lives now, and she turns on the lights. And I'm like, was it that much of an inconvenience when turning off your own lights? Like, was it that really the thing that got you to give up all your data and your private conversations with your husband? Like,
Come
okay,
on, you're
cool.
laying in bed and you're like, your eyes are half closed and you're like reaching and you can't do it. You just want to be like, yo, dude, turn the light
I'm
on.
like, what time is it? Because I just don't want to look at a clock.
Oh,
I just
please.
want to listen. I asked that machine like 5 times today what time it is. I just didn't want. I don't have a clock. I don't want
phone
the
in your pocket.
light. I don't want to look at it. It hurts my eyes when I'm waking up.
I love this idea for the zoo hypothesis about like maybe we're like the Earth is a big zoo reality show or whatever. Because now they're tracking everything we're doing. They're listening to everything. And if we really were living in like the Truman Show, well, people got cameras on their phones. You're in the bathroom and you're on your phone. And there's a camera pointing at your face.
Yeah.
American Dad made a joke about that. They were like, all the CIA does is watch people take dumps from their front-facing cameras.
No,
It's
I
kinda
mean,
not even a joke.
on my computer, my Apple computer, I do put like a little piece of tape on it.
So does
like,
Zuckerberg.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does.
yeah.
And over the
That's
microphone,
another
too.
thing. It's like always look at what the tech people are doing. Like what's like really interesting to consider is none of them allow their kids to have smartphones. They don't allow them to have Facebook. They don't allow them. Why? Why would somebody create something that they don't want their child to use?
Dude, when we were building Minds, I co-founded Minds. We were like, how addictive do we want to make this? We were designing like some gamification stuff, and we kind of agreed like 82%. Because if you can go all the way. If you want to make it so it's like heroin, digital heroin. I mean, you can do that to people,
Yeah, well-
and they do that. That's their jobs: is come in, make it as addictive as possible. We want as much, traction on the site, repetitive traction, and
Yeah, well, even the scroll mechanism, like the refresh thing, was designed after casinos because it's addicting. Like, to refresh.
it's like
That was
pulling the lever on the
designed.
slot
Yeah,
machine.
it was designed after casinos to make it more addicting. And it's just, people just don't think about it. Like, they just don't know. And I'm just constantly conscious of technology, constantly conscious of the technocrats. I consider everything in terms of how they probably think. And it's just amazing every time people, for a little bit of convenience, will give up all their privacy time and time again.
Giving up your security, giving up your freedom in exchange for security.
And that's really the theme of COVID-19, right? I mean, that really is, I guess, to extend it into what's going on today. It's amazing, like what people are celebrating as wins, and just like, it's almost, it makes you question whether or not the master and slave relationship is almost normal. You get, and when I say that, I'm not saying it's good. I'm saying, is it normal? Because when I see these people that seek to enslave themselves, despite being told the truth, despite being told, people don't, not all people want freedom. Is I guess what I'm learning now. Like people find it easier to be enslaved.
We had Yeonmi Park on. She's a North Korean defector. This was last week, and she explained to us that when she finally made it out of North Korea through years of slavery in China, traveling through the Gobi Desert, makes it to South Korea, she said it was painful to experience freedom, and that if North Korea offered her food, she would have gone back.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
The reason she said she left was that she was starving. And so she looks across the bay and she sees China and she's like, maybe if I go there, there's food. That was the sole motivating factor. Freedom was painful to, you got to be responsible for yourself.
Right. I wrote about that in my book. Like, freedom is actually something that's very difficult. And just because you're given freedom doesn't really mean much if you're not willing to be responsible for your freedom. And most people don't want to be responsible for their freedom. So just listening to government orders, it's easy. It's a system that they can plug themselves into. Look at the mentality of a slave. I can plug myself into this. They can tell me exactly what to do. And I'm comfortable with that. And the idea of removing government and having to think for yourself, like, that's scary to a lot of people. And
justifiably, because if someone makes the wrong decision and they have all the power, they could end up hurting a lot of people and then suffering consequences.
We got this big story that's been trending today. I think there's like hundreds of thousands of tweets about Tucker Carlson saying he's being spied on by the Biden administration. There's reports coming out there like not even Fox News believes it. But I first of all, this is a huge story. But when you were just talking about technology and giving up all of our security and everything. Tucker mentioned that a whistleblower contacted him and told them information about a story that could have only come from his texts or his emails. Wow. But think about that, right? We view using our cell phones as a convenience. We see our emails as a convenience, but it's also normal. And now we don't realize that we've given up some of our security in exchange for using text and email. Like, we didn't realize that was an exploit that the NSA or our political rivals could use against us.
Yeah. I mean, I was on his show last night when he said this. And I mean, just knowing Tucker, he's obviously telling the truth. Tucker's not a person. He would never introduce anything on his show that it wasn't real research, and he wasn't 100% confident in what he was saying. He's not just lingering something in front of someone's face. There's no effort to tantalize the public with what he's saying. And, it's a big story, but it's also common sense, especially with this government, right? This totalitarian regime of Biden, where we can't even say things that are true. You can't even tell the truth when you're censoring a lot of people for literally telling the truth of what happened to them, right?
I do kind of like something feels off about saying the totalitarian regime of Biden, because while I do recognize there's certainly a lot of authoritarianism, the going after the grannies from January 6th, giving credit for that to Biden seems wrong.
So when you say totalitarian regime of Biden, like, he's the puppet. He's a puppet. He's just put there, right? He doesn't know what he's doing. Like, obviously, he's not the mastermind of the Biden regime. The Biden regime is just like...
It's Jill.
Yeah, it's not even Jill. I mean, these people need to realize these people... For years, the people that became president are selected by oligarchs. They decide who they want to be president. Obama was picked. They had him run. They're in with the media. The media is just study propaganda. You don't recognize it when it's right in your face, right? Mainstream media is literally meant to control the way you think. I mean, it's called TV programming for a reason. It is programming your mind. You can take that's not a conspiracy theory. You can take a basic marketing class and learn that, like certain colors make you react a certain way. Music, subliminal messaging in stores, buy it.
We had Bannon on the show, and a lot of people in our audience were surprised at what Bannon was saying. Like, he said, tax the rich. He's like, these people are ripping you off. We got to tax the rich. And people who watch this are like, whoa. The media said he was like far right. He was a fascist. He was a white supremacist. Sounds like an Occupy Wall Street guy.
Right.
Tax the rich.
Yeah, they believe everything. I mean, there are people that are so invested, and they. The funny part is they are the ones that call everybody Nazis, and they know so little about Nazis. They know so little about Germany. They don't even know what fascism is. They don't even know they are the fascists when they say censor it. They don't understand it because they're not meant to understand it, because there's been this sort of rinsing of history, and they just think everything they don't like is a Nazi, and they don't know actually what the Nazis are. And it's, how did Hitler accomplish what he accomplished? Right? Because he controlled the media. He controlled the media. You couldn't say anything, and that's exactly what's happening. A glowing profile piece about Jill Biden, and people go, okay, well, why was Trump attacked? Because he wasn't in the establishment. The oligarchs didn't pick him, right? They didn't get into a meeting and say, we want our guy in the office. If they had, they would have said he was the best person. Like we saw about Obama. You could not find bad information on Obama, right? Because that's they control the media and they control people's minds. And there are people that are walking around in America right now and they genuinely believe that I am a black white supremacist. Like they're that far deluded.
Like it's like a Dave Chappelle sketch. I love
it
that.
is. And they believe it because that's what they're told every day by the media. They watch it. Oh, Candace Owens, she's just a black white supremacist. She just woke up one day and said, I want to help create a society that I can't live in.
Yeah.
That's
how can I help oppress myself?
It's the perfect example of cognitive dissonance. And how are we supposed to progress? How are we supposed to solve our problems when you have an entire faction that bases their worldview off of paradoxes? Like there are a bunch of like you being a black white supremacist. It's not a possible thing. It's like Clayton Bigsby was a joke.
Yeah.
They literally believe it.
Yeah, they do. They literally believe it. The joke has become real life. Parody has now become real life, right? And the first thing is it starts, I think, with taking power away from the education system. I am now a huge believer in homeschooling. And like, I know you were just showing me your mom does math videos. I'm a huge believer. Now, there's a concerted effort to dumb children down in school. And I'm not talking about a little bit. I'm talking about kids cannot do basic math equations. Yeah. And yet they're learning critical race theory. They're learning about emotions and how to just react without actually knowing why you're reacting. They know nothing about history, but love to throw out terms like Nazi and fascist. And they're just emotional babies. And so this sort of blubbering of the American mind can only be reversed if you take your children out of the education system and go back to where this country began. Plymouth, when they landed in Plymouth Rock, it was a bunch of moms being like, I'll take Monday, you take Tuesday. It was homeschooling, and it was about community outreach organization. I definitively will not put my child through the public school system in America, and the private school system's questionable now too, because the federal government is overreaching. There's all these different requirements now, even if you want to homeschool, because Kanye, I was with him at the end of last year and he wanted to start a homeschool thing, and he was talking to me about all of the roadblocks in California to prevent that from happening because the government wants your children. They want to make sure your children are dumb.
Think about what's going on with all the critical race theory stuff, these school board battles. Mm-hmm. Then you have at the same time, one of Trump's campaign promises in 2020 was school choice. We see a big push from conservatives about parents having the right to choose where their kids will go to school, maybe a voucher program. And the Democrats say it's racist to do that. No, you can't allow that because then the rich people are going to do this, that, or otherwise. Then we see what they're doing. This is the trick that the left is doing right now with critical race theory. They're saying no one is teaching critical race theory because no one is showing the book White Fragility, which is critical white studies. Nobody is reading Kimberly Crenshaw. You're all mistaken. What they're doing is they're applying critical race theory into everything else. Yeah. Then they're indoctrinating kids with psychotic nonsense. And then when the parents complain, what just happened? We saw this in Loudoun County. They arrested one guy because he was just standing there saying, I want to speak. And they were like, the event's over. You're not allowed. Yeah. And he's like, well, I was told I was allowed to speak. And then they arrest him. No, he didn't get arrested. I think he got detained and received a summons. So I think that's technically an arrest. One guy got into a fight. Yeah. But this battle's going to be big,
Yeah, but it's also like I'm always amazed when I go around and I, speak on stage. And the number one question I get is, what can we do? What can we do? It's like, it's your children. And they're being preyed upon by predators. It's like going around and have people ask me, hey, Candace, like I went to the playground today and a man showed my child pornography. What should I do? It's like, what? That's literally what's happening in school. They're showing children pornography, and parents are like, I called the administration. What do you mean you called the administration? Call the cops. Like teachers not immune from pressing charges against teachers for doing crazy things. Yeah. And if you're telling me that if you took your kid to the playground and a random stranger, because that's what these teachers are, they're random strangers, right? They're random strangers that have gone through the radical education system. They're also the dumbest people, by the way. People that get education degrees. It's fascinating. Thomas Sowell has a book called Inside the Education System, the Lies, the Dogma, and the Indoctrination. And he talks about how, in terms of like their placements in their universities, the dumbest are people that get education degrees, which is really fascinating, right? And so you're getting these people that are not the brightest, but are convinced of their own intelligence because they're being handed these degrees and accolades, and they go to teach. Like, think about the kids you went to school with. Like, people that became teachers, they were really nice, like, for at least in high school, like, they were the nice kids, but they were not the brightest in our school. Like, they were like the, C- kids. They went on to become teachers, and they should. Like, great, we need teachers. I support teachers. I love teachers, but they are convinced of their own education, and whatever they're told to teach, they teach, right? And I know I'm painting a broad brush here, but so they go in, they teach your kids all this stuff. You don't know them, they're strangers, and yet you're too fearful to remove your child from what has obviously now become a predatorial situation, right? You're preying on kids. You're teaching them race. You're teaching them how to hate one another. You're separating kids and saying, you know, why are you embarrassed about your white privilege? It's actually happened in New York school. Like, go around the room and talk about why you should feel guilty for being white. Your children are being attacked. That's a predator. Remove them. You're a parent. Forget it.
When they're teaching a lot of the stuff which borders on inappropriate sexual behavior, you think the police are actually going to do anything?
There's laws. They have to. They have to. Literally, if your child, when that teacher, or it was a workshop, they do the workshops now. Justine Eng was her name. I can't think of her last name, but it was Justine Eng something. And she's the one that did both of the workshops. She was one that showed the pornography to the 16-year-olds at the Dalton School in New York City. And she was the same one who showed the cartoon to first graders about masturbation, about how it feels good to touch themselves. Let my child into the first grade have seen a cartoon about masturbation, and I'm going to go. If you literally showed a child on a playground a cartoon about masturbation, that's disseminating sexual material to a minor.
Yep.
Point blank. If you go to the police and you file a report, there's no law saying to police, well, it happened in school, so you can't do anything as it was taught to them. No.
Wow.
You know,
The second one parent has the courage to do that, right?
Yes.
And a teacher gets arrested, this crap
Yeah.
is going to stop, because teacher's going to be like,
Let's go.
Yeah.
look, you know what I'm saying? I'm not getting arrested. Like,
Yes.
you're a sexual offender. In my
Yeah, they're in a
opinion,
really sensitive-
Justine Eng
It's-
should have to register as a sexual offender.
Justine Eng Fonte, I think
Fonte.
is what her name.
Yeah, she should be in prison.
This is from a month ago. Columbia prep students and parents reel after class on porn literacy.
Mm-hmm.
I can't say the words. I can't say the words that were being taught. It's like this was a class that taught, if I say the words, YouTube will maybe even take this video down.
Incestuous porn, like incestuous
What?
porn. Yeah, in class. And
I
none,
can't
the
say some of
parents,
these
there was
words,
no
bro.
permission slip that went out. It's
to
disgusting.
first kindergartners?
That
or
was the
first graders?
16-year-olds, but she
Yeah.
also was
16.
the same one who did
Yeah.
the
I mean,
first
still,
graders.
the thing is, these people have
And that
the
was
title.
that was a cartoon about masturbation for the first graders,
my
about how it feels good to touch yourself, and it was a cartoon.
They give these people the title of teacher, and that it's similar to having the title of president. If you win the title because you got picked, then you get this title. But the real teachers are like on the internet, like Jordan Peterson. He makes
Yeah.
videos. No one has to be there. People choose to listen and learn. But these people are stuffed in and forced to listen to this person with a badge that says something that.
That's what they've realized, that these kids are a captive audience. That and they were. Do you remember when the lockdown first started? They started doing remote schools. And one of the teachers was caught. Someone recorded this where they were like, "I'm worried the parents are going to find out what we're teaching their kids now."
Yeah,
Critical
and
race
that's
theory.
the thing, and the government understands this. And again, the irony being, everyone is calling people, "You're literally Hitler. You're literally Nazi." Well, what was Nazi youth? Okay, what was Nazi youth? It was a way to plug them into a system, to get the children on board into the system, to believe everything that the government believes. Well, that's the exact same thing that's happening right now. That it didn't change because it's happening on American soil. They have obviously understood for 6 hours a day they have your children. And now they're rinsing the schools of hard academics. They don't. Math is racist. That's an initiative by Bill Gates. You can look it up. Bill Gates started an initiative saying that math and encouraging children to get the right answer is a form of white supremacy. He's calling it equitable math, and now he is pushing for the curriculum to stop teaching kids to get the right answer and to just allow them to tell you how they got the wrong one, and they should still get a 100. That's to make your child dumb.
Check
right?
this out. We went to, we were talking about this yesterday. I went to a skate park over the weekend. And skate park's notorious for kids being punk rock, fighting with security guards, vandalizing property. And you know what the graffiti was at the skate park? Black Lives Matter. Trans rights are human rights. That was the graffiti. And I started laughing. I'm like, that's like an Amazon.com, like big bold thing when you go on. It's an organization. It is mainstream pop culture. The embassies fly the flag, and little kids think they're being rebels by adopting a message that is used by U.S. embassies and Walmart.com.
Right.
That is youth indoctrination.
And they don't get it because these kids, they're kids, right? And the problem is that the adults are crazy, right? So the adults are totally Looney Tunes, right? So the problem is twofold. It's that there's some weird Olympic event to be the most woke parent. Like, oh, we're so accepting and loving because my child is a non-binary species and it's amazing, right? That's like the new thing. And I'm like, I'm
Non-binary
such an
trans-Korean.
amazing parent because my child's a non-binary mermaid. And then you couple that with the education system that's reinforcing that. Okay, so how is it possible that when I went to school, there was no such thing as non-binary? We didn't have a single child that was non-binary.
Yeah,
right?
same.
We didn't have it, right? So it's obviously not natural for all of these kids to be popping up now doing videos saying I'm non-binary because none of us had this issue when we were growing up, and none of the people that I went to school with, now that it's even an option, have opted into this, right? Because it just wasn't even presented to them, right? It wasn't presented. So it's not like, oh, they were just suppressing this, and then now that it's a thing, I have all of these kids that I graduate with that are like, I was always non-binary. No, it was like tomboys Like I was a tomboy when I was in fifth grade.
This is why we got to be careful about saying it's just critical race theory in schools.
Oh, it's
because
way
it's
more.
critical theory in general.
Yeah.
It's like the Marxist oppressor versus oppressed. It is critical gender theory. It is critical race theory. It is critical white studies. It is the idea that everything is bad. You're the bad guy. I'm always right, no matter what happens. You're the problem.
Right.
So
So
give me
it's
power.
like, why roll the dice? Why roll the dice?
People are.
I would
little
never send my
kids,
child.
They're getting the internet. 3-year-olds are on the internet. So we're talking about these technocrats keeping their kids off the internet. And there's a reason, because when a 3-year-old goes on and looks at like cartoons, but then it turns out it's a YouTube cartoon of Hitler dancing with Bugs Bunny, and you're like, what is this? And they're learning about like why it's okay to, why gender doesn't matter, and
It's
whatever.
raising
It
your
could be
children. The
crazy
internet
stuff.
is raising children. And a good example of this, like in the mainstream, is so Dwayne Wade, right? He has a child who has come out as a trans. I don't even know. He had a son who now identifies as a daughter, right? And I remember watching the story, and him and Gabrielle Union came out, and she's super woke, and they were like so saying how like brave and encouraged they were, and like this is just who this person was, right? But then I remember seeing the photo, and this is before he had declared his gender as being a woman or a girl, and seeing a photo of his son in a crop top, at a pride parade, and with long, like Cardi B like fingernails, right? Okay, well that obviously wasn't who this person was. Where'd you learn the crop top and the long fingernails, right?
That's social
construct.
That's a social construct, right? So you can't tell me, you can say people have a natural affinity, okay, wanted to hook up with the guy, wanted to hook up with the girl, but you didn't learn long fingernails, right? So where did your child learn that, with my question to Dwayne Wade? How did we start with the crop tops and the long nails? Because that's not a thing. And the answer, of course, is going to be the internet. Because if you're on Instagram today, that is a culture, not even the Kardashians, what's the... Kylie Jenner, the lips, the fingernails, all of this stuff. It created an entire culture of this. And you're a basketball player. I know how aggressive that schedule is. I know that it is hard to be a parent and be on the road playing X amount of games all year. And so what was happening while you were on the road, and he's in a split home as well, so it was with his mother, it's likely that the internet helped to raise your kid, and this is how we got here. But rather than have that conversation, which is much more severe and hard to have, we're just going to go ahead and allow your 12-year-old, at least then 12-year-old, to make a permanent life decision. Okay, fine.
3-year-old.
3?
Dwayne Wade. His trans daughter knew her identity since she was 3 years old.
Which is scary, because I babysat 3-year-olds who literally think they're mermaids. Like I've had a 3-year-old in a tub, she cried and screamed and threw a temper tantrum because she told me she was a mermaid. I cannot imagine giving credence to that and saying, you know what, sleep in the bath tonight, because I am sorry, and I can't wait to go to tell the other parents how amazing and woke I am because I'm accepting you as a mermaid.
I'm pretty sure when I was 3 and my mom asked me what I wanted to be, and this is a true story, I said a pumpkin.
I like that.
It was like I was just like a little kid, and that was like a story my mom would
so
say.
cute.
People would be like, what does he want to be? And she's like, well, he said pumpkin.
Yeah,
So
I really wanted to be a Power Ranger.
Yes.
yeah.
I still kind of do, but
He's joined the Marines.
yeah,
Davy
nobody
Crockett or
recognized my Power Ranger skills.
Which Power Ranger?
That's a very good question. By the way, in the retrospect, how racist.
Yeah.
The yellow one's Asian, the black one's black, the white one's white, the pink one's a
the
girl.
pink one's a girl.
What?
Oh, it's so
Yeah,
funny.
that was
I love the
amazing.
power. It's amazing. Probably the robot
Or
that
would
was
you
like
build your
working
own?
for all them, right?
Oh.
Build me, yeah. Like
I don't know that
I like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was it. It was
I was
it.
into
That's so
Voltron,
weird though. Like, wait,
'cause it was
how
the
did how did the original Power Rangers happen? Where they're like sitting there and like, let's make the Yellow Ranger Asian.
Yeah.
Like, why would you?
I know, it's so great. It's so
The Black
great.
Ranger was
I know.
black.
I know. I'm sure they're already canceled. We just have to Google it. I'm sure someone realized that 20 years later and was
Dude,
like,
for
canceled.
sure.
It goes back to like the 70s. There was a show that was like the first one where there was like 5 people in different colored outfits that would come together to form like a big creature, and then it became Voltron. Then it became the Power Rangers.
Yeah, I was
But
Power Rangers.
I don't know that original show. I don't remember what it's called. Do
I
you
have
know?
no idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Voltron.
Yeah, Voltron was the 80s version. They were all these cat machines they would ride around, and then they'd form this giant guy who had a big sword, this
Ian,
big
how old
robot.
are you?
42.
Okay,
It was
yeah.
hot. 86. Yeah. I like the green
We're
power.
dinosaur.
the green-
You remember when Mario Lopez he was on someone's show,
Yeah.
and he said, "I don't think 3-year-olds know that they're trans."
You know what show that was?
Who was it?
The Candace Owens show.
That was
No
your
way.
show.
Yeah. Yeah.
He got in trouble.
He did. He came on my show, and it was what was so bizarre. And Mario's a friend of mine, and like what was so bizarre is like we just didn't go there. Like it was like sort of just it was such a non-question. It wasn't like I was pushing him. It was just sort of like what's it like in Hollywood now, because it's the woke Olympics. And he was very nice, and he just said, like, you know, for me personally, like, you know, I understand when you're an adult, do what you want, but just let kids be kids.
Yeah.
You know, and it was funny because it was like 2 months later after the interview, and then suddenly like Mario Lopez is trending, and everyone listened to it, and it was like he literally said as nice as possible, like, hey, let kids grow up. And they were in to cancel him, and he had to issue. He did apologize, but I will say it was a very, like, it's always the same apology, like copy and pasted, where like you have to say it. And you know, I was bummed that he apologized, but also not bummed because he's a fantastic person, really a fantastic human being. I think him and his wife are such an example of what it means to just be a very present family. I'm very impressed by them. And just imagine everything you have being gone in a moment unless you do this. And so, yes, I would stand by my guns. But when you have 3 small kids, it gets harder and it gets harder and it gets harder, right?
But think about the future for those kids.
100% true, but he's on the other side thinking of the future for those kids, right? So it's like whatever schools they go to, I don't know, maybe they go to private school, they have a house, he's got a mortgage to pay. So I've tried to be more understanding. I think when you have the autonomy to do it, it's a lot easier. Like, there's no excuse when there's like a person who's like no family and just takes it. I'm like, come on, man. But I get it because and by the way, I'm on your side. I think he would have done that and he would have been a hero and other doors would have been open. But it's a very big risk to ask somebody to take who's established.
It's true. And I've said this, like, I understand people who have kids who are scared to speak out, but it really sounds like you're betting the future will be communist wokeness. And so you want to keep your family safe.
Yeah.
But if everyone said no, then the future wouldn't be.
Let me tell you, if
trash.
I could just, maybe one day I won't, but like the A-list celebrities that are in my inbox that I speak to, you would be shocked at how many of them hate it. I mean, they are definitely, I think the majority of them hate it. Right. Yeah. It's actually the majority of them hate it. And I have conversations with them on the phone. And I'm just like, man, you're like top player in the NBA. It'd be amazing if you spoke out. Like, hey, you're the number
I get the
1
same
and 2
thing.
R&B singer, you know, and it's and they can't do it. And so they just talk to us almost like we're like I'm their therapist, you know, where they can just let it go.
I've had people, rock stars, skateboarders, call me, some nearly crying. Like, I'm scared, man. You know, I could lose everything in a moment. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're going to call me and talk to me for 2 hours. It's like therapy. It really is.
It is. It's
they
like
can't
therapy.
talk to anybody. They're scared. They're terrified. They know they can talk to me because they watch my show and they trust it. And I'm like, you have how many millions of followers? You could come out right now and just say, guys, I do not think this is okay. I think you need to chill. And they're like, yeah, but I'll lose everything. And I'm like, you're a millionaire, dude.
Well, I mean, that's why kudos to that guy, actually. The Mumford and Sons guy. Yeah. I read his piece today. Actually, it was the first time I read it. I think he released it 5 days ago, and just saying like I couldn't, you know, I knew that I could lose everything, but at the end of the day, like my soul wouldn't sit right if I allowed this radicalism to be the reason. And he just stepped down from the band because there's things that are more important in life. And I think people like him are heroic, and to platform that, I think the more and more people that kind of inch forward and do it, eventually it'll just be an avalanche.
You look at what happens with Veritas. You know, when someone blows the whistle and goes to Veritas, what happened? That Facebook guy raised $500,000 because there are people who will support you. When you come out and you be brave, you will not be left holding the bag. Yeah. And I think what James is doing is incredible because he's proving it. Yeah, he's saying be brave. And then he's like, and this guy got $500,000.
Right.
That's true. I was just thinking, is it going to take like another Jesus or Socrates that speaks the truth, society revolts, executes the person, and then 50 or 100 years later we realize, what have we done? Why? What have we... This person was saying the right thing. But no, it's not going to take that because we have people like James. It's happening, this upsurgence is happening all at once, and people are making $500,000 after the fact. So... Yeah. We've evolved. Are you
comparing James O'Keefe to Jesus or Socrates?
All of us, baby. Yeah. We all have that in us to speak up against the empire, and that's if we do it together.
It's true. It's funny because I just recently reread Plato's Apology, and it's just incredible how history repeats itself. And calling out the corruption of senators and the courage that it took to know that there was no upside other than death, and to have it be noble. And I hear that same message. That was kind of my mentality when I sort of jumped out of the window. And I know that was Kanye's mentality. If you listen to his music, I mean, a lot of the courage that I have is because I listen to so much Kanye West. And to me, I don't have the slave mentality, right? So I'd rather be executed running away, right, towards freedom. Like I'm definitely the slave that would have run away from the plantation. I'm the Harriet Tubman. I'm like, I'm the Kanye West. I'm the, pick a point in time. I'm the Socrates asking people, walking down the street, asking them questions about what they think. But because freedom is natural to me. But I don't know, as I was saying earlier, if it's natural for everybody. I wonder now, as I look at this society and look at COVID-19, people that were like, please lock us down, please put us in our homes, please tell me when to see my mom and dad. I'm like, maybe people just want to be enslaved. And this model of, slave and master, meaning government and people that it controls, will never be broken.
Freedom is scary.
Yeah.
Freedom is dangerous. For those of us that are adults, we're okay with that.
Yeah.
You know what I did today? I went and I picked a bunch of wild berries, and then I cooked them and ate them.
Wow. I see.
Yeah.
I got to get on that. Like, it's one thing that I'm definitely lacking in is I think it is so important for us to know how to farm.
Yeah.
It's like so important. I mean, the amount of control you give up when you can't feed yourself that's like unlock the next layer of the Candace Owens game. Candace Owens farms.
When you pull a weed out, super smooth, it's so rewarding.
And my last name is Farmer, legally.
Oh, nice.
I just got married, and my last name
Congratulations.
so now it's even weirder to be like Candace Farmer and literally farms nothing.
Candace
Yeah.
Farmer.
I want to talk about, you mentioned the lockdown stuff, because we got a story. It's a bit personal. I'm talking about a friend of mine who said he was cool with me sharing his posts. He did make them publicly either way. And right now we have the Delta variant. Now, I think New York, I'm not sure if it's New York, they're saying they're not going to do another
Yeah, it's New
lockdown.
York.
But LA is saying we're bringing back the mask guidelines because the Delta variant is scary. The first thing I'm going to say is a disclaimer to this. Look, I'm going to be telling a story about one person. I don't want this to be a shocking story. Like, I don't want it to be shock value or fear-mongering on the vaccine or anything like that. I just think these are things we need to talk about. Brett Weinstein talks a bit about this on his show. He's been demonetized. He's been given a strike over this. So I'm going to say this. Talk to your doctor. Raise your concerns with your doctor. If you're unsatisfied, you get a second opinion. These are normal things that people do. No one's forcing you to listen to only one person. You can talk to as many doctors as you want. Just make sure you're getting...
Except for Facebook, who's forcing you to listen to one person, and that's Dr. Fauci, but go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, no, well, fair point. Fair point. YouTube too.
Yeah.
But what I mean is, in your daily life, you go to your doctor, and if you don't like what they're saying, you call another doctor. And you keep having these conversations. And I've talked to people, we've had people on the show who said they've had good doctors who have given them sound advice. But I want to show you this, because this pertains a lot to people. I'm not trying to be mean to my friend. He's a good friend of mine. I've known him since I was a kid. But a lot of people just go along with whatever's being said. So I'll give you the gist of it. My friend got the vaccine, and he got nerve damage. And now his legs, and he has problems in his legs and arms. He was in the hospital for this. And he said that after a second dose, this was over a month ago, he started feeling pins and needles in his arms and legs.
It happened to my girlfriend, pins and needles, but she had it instantly.
He said it was a couple days later, and then eventually he was struggling to walk. He was having tremors, and his arms and legs felt like they weighed 120 pounds. He ends up in the hospital. He just posted a message. I tweeted it out. He said, I made a hard decision today. I am officially stepping away from music for the foreseeable future. It breaks my heart that my injury has led to this, but with complications to my living situation, as well as constant fatigue and pain, I can no longer effectively serve my musical projects to the best of my abilities. I love my bandmates and our fans and friends. It's been a wonderful 20 years of shows and great times. I hope I can return to the stage one day soon. Till then, peace and love. Again, I'm not trying to say this is indicative of every single person this has happened to. I just think it's important that we have these honest conversations, because if you suppress them, what happens? People freak out, they get scared, they get paranoid. Okay, it's simple. Something bad happened to my friend. What I'm trying to point out is that he had already had the COVID. So he was immune. He wanted to play shows. The stores, these venues, they don't know anything about your medical history. So they just say, I don't care. If you got the vaccine, you can play. So he goes to get it. And then he ends up getting it. And what they think now is there have been doctors recommending that if you've had the COVID within a certain time, you can't get vaccinated until a certain time after, or something like that.
Yeah. Well, none of this is it's no longer conspiracy theory we're talking about, because now the CDC had to look into the myocarditis, the kids that were having the heart inflammation. Now it's a warning. As of yesterday, they said there's now officially a warning, and you can look up which on the Pfizer and the Moderna vaccine regarding potential heart inflammation side effects, which is incredible, because it took this long for them to admit it. And we've all known this because we're talking to our friends and we've been censored. So there's so much. I mean, there's so many people that should be sued for censoring this information, because people that, if we had just known and had an honest conversation, I actually think more people would be inclined to get the vaccine if there was an honest conversation, as opposed to the mass censorships that the fact that you even have to start with, I'm just saying, is the reason people don't trust Big Pharma or trust YouTube or trust Facebook, because they're not allowed to talk about what's happening. And, I'm obviously a woman in her childbearing years. I had a girlfriend, and I've talked about this on my show. She's a doctor. She had to get the vaccine, got it, and, bled for an extraordinary a long amount of time and hasn't had a normal menstruation cycle since, right? And so that was another story that kept popping up, and now they're looking into it, looking into it finally, which means that enough is happening to enough people where they have to look into it, and maybe 2 months from now they'll admit that, it's causing some effects with menstruation. Who knows? But who knows, right? But here is what I will just say, so we can keep this conversation universal, which will keep us off the ice with the YouTube censorship lords. Common sense. It's just not that common anymore, right? If we put a peanut in the middle of this table, peanuts are good. I like peanuts.
I like peanuts.
If every single person had a peanut in the world, would all of us be feeling the same way about peanuts? Some people would be dead, right?
Oh, yeah.
Peanut.
Some
Grows on
have
trees.
allergies.
Yeah, people have allergies, right? Like there are, I have a very severe allergy to mold. Like severe, shut down my life. Like if there is mold growing in a home, it is that bad, right? Not everybody has that. Some people can be around mold and they'll be totally fine, right? So if you talk about any product, styrofoam, it doesn't matter what it is. People have the strangest allergies ever, right? Weird allergies. Some people are allergic to dog hair, cat hair, human hair, right? And we watch these episodes of all of these strange things, and it's obviously because what? We're not all the same. That's common sense. We're not all the same. We have different backgrounds, right? Suddenly you apply this to medicine, and people go, that's impossible. That's a conspiracy theory. That should just indicate to you the power that big pharma, a $1 trillion industry, has, where it is forcing people, right, or it's causing people to not think with common sense, which is that one size does not fit all.
This is my main issue with all of this. People are going to McDonald's, and there's like a vaccine station outside.
Oh my gosh.
They're going to bars, and they're drunk. Now, I want to make sure I show you mentioned the myocarditis. It is a fact. CDC does now issue a warning, myocarditis and pericarditis following mRNA vaccination. They do mention, first thing, more than 177 million people have received at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine in the U.S. The CDC continues to monitor the safety of the COVID vaccines for any health problems that happen after vaccination. Since April 2021, there have been more than 1,000 reports to the Vaccine Adverse Event Reporting System of cases of inflammation of the heart called myocarditis and pericarditis happening after mRNA COVID-19 vaccination. These reports are rare given the hundreds of millions of vaccine doses administered and have been reported after mRNA COVID vaccination, particularly in adolescents and young adults. CDC and its partners are actively monitoring these reports by reviewing data and medical records to learn more about what happened and to understand any relationship to COVID-19 vaccination.
You know what else is rare? Death from COVID-19.
Very rare.
Exceedingly rare, but
90.
that didn't stop them from shutting down all of society. But now all of a sudden, this myocarditis and this symptom is rare, and it's not stopping them from doing the vaccines. They're not locking down the vaccines. So it's an interesting thing.
Well,
when rare matters to big pharma and when it doesn't matter to big pharma, and it's interesting that when they can make money, exceedingly rare is fine. Keep doing the thing. But if they can't make money, right, exceeding rare, it doesn't mean anything to them. It's like,
COVID is more dangerous than the vaccine. If you just look at I think it's 0.2, 0.3. I don't want to get the numbers wrong on the mortality rate from COVID. It is mostly older people. It is mostly comorbidities. But of the people who got
to young
COVID,
people, which one's more dangerous? To the teenagers that are getting myocarditis, which one's more dangerous?
Yeah. So.
Question mark. Well, let's put question mark. Let's just put question mark. Which one is more dangerous for the teenagers and the children?
The crazy thing is we don't know because
don't know.
they didn't do studies for years on the vaccines before they released them to the
public.
public.
Every time people said that, it's still not FDA approved. It's still it's got
EUA. Emergency use authorization.
Yeah, exactly. It's got emergency use authorization.
But I do think one of them, and I don't know which one, so I'm not going to say, is approved for youth or something like that, like 12 to 17. They got approval for.
Is that true?
They might just be EUA approval.
EUA approval, yeah. When they started, they're doing it younger and younger, the EUA approval. But
I want to read this. They mentioned confirmed cases occurred mostly in male adolescents and young adults aged 16 years or older, more often after getting the second dose than the first dose, and typically within several days of COVID-19 vaccination. So I will stress, 177 million doses, okay? You need to decide what's right for your family. You need to ask your doctor for sound medical advice. Don't get medical advice from people like me on the internet or from comedians or from TV doctors. I'm trying to. We're probably in trouble for even talking about it. Like
right.
that's the name of the game.
Because that's how much power Big Pharma has, and that's because Big Pharma gives billions of dollars to YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, right? So right now the YouTube lords are going, oh my gosh, we're getting this huge check from Big Pharma, and we need to make sure that we protect that money that we get. And so us having a conversation that should be had, which is an important conversation about health and how we're all different, and people, they should allow this if they cared about the well-being of people, get censored because they care about their paychecks, and that's the society that we live in, right?
And I'll stress, we're not recommending anyone do anything.
No.
We're
I
just saying,
do what's
recommend
good
talk to
for
your
you.
doctor.
No, for me, I had a vaccine reaction years ago. I'm not playing with it. I have no interest in getting the vaccine. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm telling you to do it or not do it. I have friends that have gotten it, friends that have not gotten it. And that autonomy used to be okay.
This is the line I'm trying to dance, right? If you do not have conversations about the negative, then what happens to someone who experiences the negative?
They're confused and they get angry.
Well, they go deep down into the conspiracy theories,
Right.
and that's what's wrong. And that's what I've been saying. Actually, I think more people are less inclined to get it now because there's so obviously not an honest conversation being had.
So this is what happens. I tweeted the story and I get a bunch of lefties being like, oh, you had one friend, so you're saying the millions? And I'm like, no, I'm not saying any of that. I'm just saying, like, here's a story from my friend. It's a tragic story. We need to have a conversation about what this means and what the results will be, because it is affecting people this way. And I think people should talk to their doctors to make sure they're getting sound medical advice, because I'm not giving it. And just because I post one story doesn't, most of the people I know, the overwhelming majority, no problems whatsoever.
Well, let me tell you.
We had I don't want to name the people who've come on the show who've talked about this privately, because it's their private medical information. We've had a ton of guests who are like, I had no side effects whatsoever. Mm-hmm. But can we talk about it without getting banned? We'll see.
Right. Well, I mean, Eric Clapton had a similar response. Said he thought he would never play guitar again. Right. And yeah, so I mean, I think one of the things that I think is that is most sad about it is that what they're doing now, and this is why I did a whole episode talking about my friend who, has not had a regular menstruation cycle since getting the vaccine. And she's like, we're actually people that did everything they told us to do, and they're being gaslit, right? So they did what they were supposed to do. They stayed locked down. They didn't go to work. They lost money. And then when things opened up and the vaccine became available, they got the vaccine. So they followed all government orders. And now that same government is gaslighting them when they say, oh, I had a weird reaction. They go, that's not possible. So for right now, the menstruation thing hasn't been looked into enough. There's tons of articles on it, but they're like, it's hearsay. That's what they do. And she's like, now I'm being gaslit from the same people that I listened to. That's a horrible feeling, right? And that's why I talk about it, because I'm like, they're not being listened to, and they did all of the listening. And I'll leave it with this joke. What's the difference between a conspiracy theory and the truth?
8 months.
Yeah.
12 months. Yeah.
But I want to mention something too. There's two big things that I talk about with this. I really do think there's a lot of people online who will see a handful of these stories and hyper focus on them and then think like it's the apocalypse. And I've heard some really crazy conspiracies about the vaccine. I'm like, dude, there's not a zombie apocalypse. There's not. People are saying in 2 years everyone's gonna die, and I'm like, that's insane, dude. That's not gonna happen.
How crazy though! Imagine if that did happen. Like,
it's just not gonna happen.
I know, but like,
days
let's
later,
create a movie. Let's create a movie right now. Like, obviously, it's not going to happen. But what if it did? Imagine if every person you knew who got the vaccine died.
Falls over.
That's crazy. That's
just
a crazy,
things,
funny movie to consider.
Yeah,
Not funny. I mean,
power.
terribly like horrible.
Funny,
like,
strange.
Funny, strange. Yeah, like whoa.
People want to believe the world is this like movie, and I tell people this, like, silencers aren't real, guns don't
someone
go.
just messaged me that. Can you tell Tim that some silencers do sound like the movies? You can like treat them and make it so it's like you can't hear it.
Okay, sure,
Sounds
but the
illegal.
idea that
I
like,
heard
a
you,
spy,
dude. Thanks for messaging me.
A spy walks into a room and screws on a silencer and goes pew, pew, pew. It's like, okay. Anyway,
But that's
look.
what James Bond did.
Right. Movies, not real life. Okay, sure. There are certainly some very quiet surprises.
I didn't look into it.
It probably subsonic rounds. I don't know enough
Movie
about it, but sure,
CPR.
fine. The
It
point
is a
is,
post-apocalyptic film, though, right?
I'm worried about two things. One, how many, for sure, like I can talk about my friend because I think we need to have these conversations, but how many of these news stories over-exaggerate? There was one story from the New York Post where they were like, 2 days after getting a vaccine, a college student died. And at the bottom, it's like the vaccine had nothing to do with his death. It was like alcohol related or something like
So
that.
that was the same with COVID-19. I remember like there was like a 5-year-old died of COVID-19, and then like a little thing at the bottom said like she also had meningitis. I'm like, oh,
Oh my gosh.
okay, so she probably died from the meningitis, not the COVID-19, but they were doing the post-mortem testing, and I notoriously blew up the story of the governor of Connecticut who should be imprisoned for a lie, but he told saying an infant died of COVID-19. And through my back channels, because it was a Connecticut story, and I'm from Connecticut, and my sisters were both pregnant at the time, and this story traumatized them. I decided to get to the bottom of it because I knew he was lying. It was the way he phrased it.
Yeah,
of
is the word.
COVID-19 complications. And then I find out that actually the baby was suffocated by its drug addict mother, and then in post-mortem testing, they tested for COVID-19. And that was enough to be on the list.
Didn't
right?
George Floyd have COVID?
He did.
Yeah. So I mean, and so it's like it's just one of those things that's so frustrating because, like, again, when the media wants to be evasive, they're evasive, and then like all of this data. I know Tucker Carlson notoriously got in trouble by literally reading the VAERS data and saying, you know, this is not good what we're seeing, and they're like, well, there's no way to confirm that data. I'm like, okay, well, it was enough when people were getting COVID-19 for you to add to the death ticker, but I guess it's not enough when people are talking about vaccines. And again, only one of those one of those things makes, big pharma money.
That's the double standard. That during COVID, there was one viral video. Apparently, like someone got into a motorcycle accident and then had COVID. And I think it was a health official from Illinois who mentioned like that will be listed because the person died with COVID.
She did. I remember watching the video.
We kept hearing, I mean, it's really, really extreme. If it saves one life, right? They're like, we're going to lock everything down if it saves one life. It's like, that's the double standard.
Right.
When it comes to big pharma, when it comes to just going 100% in one direction, when it's the establishment to the left, you're allowed to. We can barely even have conversations about adverse reactions without getting banned on YouTube.
Yeah, well, I do, and I talked about it on Instagram because, like I said, I had a bad reaction to the Gardasil vaccine, and from then I just said I will never stay silent about it. And it's incredible how many women have written me and just said thank you for talking about this because so many women were injured by that vaccine.
You know what their mentality is.
It was so bad.
But you know what their mentality is though. The officials say, look, we know that vaccine injuries are real. We know that there's a certain percentage. That's why the CDC mentions, look, we had 177 million, over 1,000 myocarditis reports, because they will publicly say this. And I think Fauci even did. It is worth it because you save more lives with the vaccine than the people who get hurt by it. And the people who get hurt by it are not likely to die. And that's literally been their line of thinking. It's really fascinating because it's this very utilitarian versus deontological argument. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Okay, we vaccinate everybody. There will be some injuries to people, but that's okay. It's the trolley problem, right? You've got a person on, you got the 5 people on one side, 1 person on the other. The train's going to hit the 5 people. You can pull the lever. It'll hit the 1 person, but you chose to hit that 1 person.
Right.
How many people probably would just be fine if they went to their doctors, asked for medical advice, the doctor said, here's what I recommend for you, and it wasn't the vaccine, and they went home and they never got COVID, nothing happened.
Yeah, but how disgusting that people that get COVID are still being told they have to get the vaccine. Like literally science saying to you, we are smarter than the human body. And like, so those natural antibodies, no, you need to get these fake ones, and it's so that's even more bizarre is that like they haven't even isolated the virus. They've created a vaccine that they say, if you get the virus, you'll have less of a chance of dying, even though, as I said, if you're young, you have a remarkably virtually non-existent chance of dying anyways, forcing you to get it to be able to go back to school and to resume your normal life. And, just because, I don't know, they decided that's totally necessary. And again, they just seem so hypocritical because it's like they either care about the few for the all or they don't, or it's the exact opposite. They're sending mixed signals right now. They're telling us vaccines work, but then saying that if you don't have the vaccine, you should be masked. And it's like, well, vaccines work.
Oh, no. The Delta variant, the World Health Organization says now, even with the vaccine, you should be wearing a mask and socially distancing.
That's new. But even before, when they were saying vaccines work, right? If vaccines work, why do you care? I am not vaccinated. Why do you care if I am next to someone who is vaccinated? Because they should be protected. And we know that they're not protected because Bill Maher, all these people are coming out, they got the vaccine and they're still getting COVID-19. So now what was the exercise about? If they can still catch it and his wasn't the Delta variant, right? If people are still getting COVID-19 after getting the vaccine, now explain to us what this song and dance is about.
Well, this is interesting because the YouTube rules actually say you can't state the vaccine is a guarantee and you can't state the vaccine doesn't work. You have to actually say it mostly works. Like it's look,
bizarre.
There's a huge list of YouTube's rules, and I got an official statement from them.
Me too, from Facebook. Anything that creates vaccine hesitancy will be banned, even if it's the truth.
On YouTube, this was interesting because Reuters came out with a story. Oxford did a study on ivermectin, and they said it may be effective, but they're still doing trials. I want to make sure that's very clear because YouTube asked me to. And they said all that matters when you're talking about hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin, as you mentioned, the FDA says it's not approved, it's not effective, and tell people to talk to their doctor, and you should be fine. So, okay, we'll see if that's enough for them. But I kind of feel like it won't be because we've certainly been flying close to the sun in this one.
Yeah, man.
It's
common
important.
sense. 9 new billionaires have been minted. The governments have extraordinary powers since this COVID-19 thing. But, okay, sure.
I get passionate about physical health. The medical industry has it. I don't know what you call it. What do they call it? Where they cut stuff out if it's infected rather than try and treat it. But basically, it's been around since the Rockefeller built this industry. Osteopathic medicine, where you'll cut out a problem instead of try and treat it from the inside by treating the lymphatic system. So this whole system is built on like treating the blood after the fact. Let's try and pump some where you can fix your lymphatic system's acidity by like eating the right foods.
No. Hold on, bro. Like I genuinely. When I see these like YouTube videos and they get into it and they start talking about what you should be doing and what you can do, I'm not a fan of that. Steve Jobs thought he was going to drink fruit and cure his cancer. So like, I don't like.
There's no cure for
No,
for
I
anything.
don't like the idea
There's always
of like. I'm just stopping
eating
you
healthy.
because you're
I mean, we got to
you're
start at
talking
the
about
bottom.
Do you
how
mean
to
like
cure your-
preventative from getting sick
Yes,
before?
yes. If
Preventative,
the medical
not like
industry was
after you get sick.
preventative-
Yeah.
Like he's correct. Yeah, of course it's not preventative. They're never trying to like. There's so many steps that can happen before you get to like a person that. And by the way, this is kind of making me think of when you said that, like the Britney Spears thing. I've been kind of talking about a lot because she obviously this has been a big story. She came out and says that she's been in prison, and she definitely has been. And people, I believe people should go to prison for what they did to her because it's incomprehensible. She had this very obvious out in the front mental breakdown, but like the reason for that mental breakdown was very clear. She was begging the paparazzi to leave her alone. They didn't. It was insane. And it reminded me of when I was in college. This was actually a moment in my life that changed my life, and I will never forget the name of the girl who did this. Her name was Zoe Esposito. All teenage girls are like on the brink of suicide. Like we're just highly emotional. I'm being hyperbolic, obviously, but like, you know, it just being a teenager in general, right? It's just a lot more angst. Like that's one time I don't want to go back to is being a teenager. And my boyfriend and I were in high school and we broke up. And I was in, he was my high school boyfriend. I was in my freshman year of college. We broke up on the phone and I was like devastated. When I tell you like devastated, like screaming, crying, like the RA came to check on me. Like I was like, ugh, I couldn't stop crying, wouldn't get out of bed. My dad was so scared because he had never heard me sound like that. But he got in his car and he drove up the 2.5 hours to university and picked me up from my dorm and took me home. You know, like what is wrong with my, I couldn't do, I wouldn't eat, nothing. And took me to the doctor. Because that's what you do, I guess. Your child's sad, you take him to the doctor. And the doctor wrote me a full prescription for Xanax. Because he's like, you know, you're crying a lot. Xanax will help you deal with the anxiety of this breakup and whatever. So I go back to university that night, and I've got this Xanax prescription. And this girl, Zoe, thank God, met me in the dorm because she was waiting for me to get back. And she talks to me, and I'm like, well, the doctor gave me Xanax. And she's like, I'm just going to ask you a question. She was like, why are you going to take that pill? And I was like, because I'm really sad. And she was like, why are you sad? Like, you know, why are you so sad? And I said, you know, because me and so-and-so broke up. And she said, I have this thing that if you can answer the question why, right, you don't need a pill. Like, yes. That's a human emotion, and you're going to have to learn to deal with that emotion, right? And now we kind of live in a society which doesn't believe in people dealing with any emotions, and it's sort of like, you know, we overprescribe for everything, right? So it's like, you know, now you have the kids notoriously that are hyper 6-year-olds. Like 6-year-olds are supposed to be hyper and jumping off. Put them on Ritalin, put them on Adderall. Your kid won't focus on math. It's like because he literally wants to be outside screaming and jumping from the monkey bars and like, you know, jumping off of a tire swing, and instead you're telling him to focus on math. Like that's a normal thing. And so I see what you're talking about regarding like all of these things before you get to the thing, because now I know those girls who took the Xanax and they're 30 and they're out of their minds, you know, because every time they feel an emotion, they put a pill. They don't know how to deal with regular anxiety, you know, because they don't know that like you have to figure out how to deal with
a lot
the
of
thing, you know.
Food, like
You know
sugar
what I
will
think
make
it
kids
is?
crazy. If you cut that out of the diet, it helps.
I think these big tech companies don't want to have any liability for self-harm. Mm-hmm. So when I was talking with Jack Dorsey, for instance, on the Joe Rogan show, what did Jack say? He's like, well, there's a lot of people who are prone to suicide, so we need to protect that group.
Right.
What is YouTube saying right now when it comes to their rules and all of this stuff? Just make sure you tell people to go to their own doctor.
Right.
Now, I genuinely do believe
Yeah.
Joe Rogan should not be giving medical advice, and you should be going to your doctor. And I'm not giving anybody advice, go to your doctor. But they're worried that someone's going to do something. They're going to blame YouTube, they're going to blame Twitter, and then they're going to have to pay out for it.
I think it's cool to talk about like all of the COVID stuff is like one thing, but then the talking about like the medical industry is a whole other.
It's very important.
Yeah.
It's very
Could you
important.
imagine what's going to happen to all the Bernie Sanders supporters who want universal health care when they start making videos complaining about the big pharmaceutical industries, the costs of health care, their concerns about how drugs are given out to make money instead of actually curing diseases?
Yeah.
Oh, YouTube's going to ban all of those Bernie bros.
America is like that. I mean, especially, you know, I'm married to a Brit, and when you go overseas or you go to Europe and you see the relationship that they have, it's just we overprescribe. Our idea is to not treat anything, you know, to diagnose it before you even understand it and to give somebody a pill, right? And so like obviously the fact that I was able to, I knew why I was sad, you know what I mean? I knew why I was sad. It wasn't like I was just like woke up, broke down crying and didn't know why. Then you say, okay, maybe there's some, you know, chemical imbalance. And increasingly we're getting people that don't even understand themselves before they're kind of put onto the big pharma track, which is a pill to manage everything in life. And then when they don't have that pill and they feel an emotion coming up, like their thing is, how do I get rid of it? How do I make it go away?
When after you had that conversation with Zoe, what was your like
Threw the whole thing out.
experience for the next few? Like, how did you kind of
It still sucked. I was still sad. There you go. I was still sad. I threw all the pills out because it just made so much logical sense what she said. And I thank God, because I'm like, I don't know what would happen if I just was like taking Xanax all the time. But I had that mentality of, I recognize I'm sad because this thing happened. And I'm able to deal with sadness because I know what it feels like. I know if you have anxiety. Oh my God, I have anxiety. I have to take a pill. I got a pill. Well, why are you anxious? Because I have finals. Okay, well then you know why you're anxious, so you got to figure out how to channel that, because it's not healthy to keep thinking that you just take something to make human emotions go away. Now, of course, there's a line where like, okay, then you say, like you just brought up, well, what about the kid who's gonna like actually just kill himself, right?
Well,
like,
what about
that's
people
different.
with actual chemical imbalances?
And that's
they
exists.
need medication.
And that's what Zoe said. She said, if you said to me, Candace, I'm crying, I don't know why.
Yeah.
There you go. Something's wrong, right? And that exists. That's
what
very
if I said
true,
to you,
but-
I have anxiety because of the military-industrial complex?
I'd be like, bro, turn off YouTube.
I don't think I don't want to pill it out, but like, what's the solution?
Yeah.
I'm being serious. This is a real question, by the way.
Yeah.
The solution is to talk to a medical professional and
Yeah.
ask them for
Always.
a medical opinion.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're unhappy,
medical solution.
you get a second opinion. Well, it could be like a psychiatrist.
Go to
I mean, I just want to treat the problem.
Your
I'm not-
anxiety.
Yeah, like I have anxiety because the military-industrial complex was built in the 40s to be the world police, and I'm concerned.
You
I wanna help.
you should talk about it. I don't think you should have anxiety over that.
Okay.
I mean,
People
it
have
is a
anxiety
problem.
over anxiety is a real thing. You just get
Yeah.
anxious sometimes about whatever it is. I mean, but people don't know what was also real about it is that increasingly is people don't realize that that's a human emotion that you're going to have to learn to deal with, in every capacity. And unless it's crushing and overwhelming, and you can't I don't know. That, again, opinion. Talk to your doctor. But I'm just talking about a personal experience that happened to me, and it really shaped my mindset on those things.
I'm not, and I want to make sure this is clear too. Like, I'm not just saying talk to your doctor because YouTube says it. I legit was like, when Joe Rogan said people shouldn't get the vaccine, I was like, Joe, come on, like, people shouldn't be asking a comedian or a TV doctor for advice.
Yeah, but it's not advice; it's an opinion, right? So why
That's
doesn't
true.
that's
That's
my
true.
thing is like, why can't Joe have an opinion? Like, if you said if I just said to you teenagers shouldn't be taking Xanax, like, why is it suddenly like, you're not a doctor, how dare you? It's like, dude, it's just an opinion. Like, now everyone's like too offended to hear people's opinions. Like, I have an opinion. When I was working with Charlie Kirk, Charlie was running at one point 10 miles a day, right?
Whoa.
Literally like a psychopath, like total psychopath. Everywhere we went, we were traveling 5 times a week. He would just grab his shoes and go. And I would say to him over and over again, you really shouldn't run 10 miles a day. I'm not a freaking PE teacher. I'm not but I was like, that's not going to can't be good for your joints. And Charlie had the opinion that he should do it. It used to be like normal. You should just be able to give your opinion. And then all of a sudden what happened? Charlie hurt his back and Charlie can't run anymore. So guess what?
Charlie,
I didn't have to be a PE teacher. Now I always say to him, you know what, Charlie, I hate to say this, but I told you so. Why can't Joe Rogan have an opinion?
There's a difference between having
no.
opinion and expressing opinion.
That's fine. That's a good point. But with great power comes great responsibility. And so they didn't ban Joe for saying this. Joe just came out. I don't think, Joe's response was, listen to Fauci, I'm an idiot. I'm like, no. Fauci is a TV doctor.
Yeah.
So like we had someone on the show who mentioned, I don't know, it was Crowder mentioned this. He put out this video where he said his wife went to the doctor, and because of her medical issues, the doctor said, you are not a candidate for the vaccine. And that's like a legitimate doctor saying, here's the things you need to understand about why you are or aren't, should be doing this. Fauci's the guy who goes on TV and says, everybody should just go and get it. And it's like, stop. There are going to be people who walk to a bar and get drunk, and these guys don't know their medical history. And then what? Is Fauci going to be held responsible?
Yeah, but why should Joe Rogan say that's I don't like this argument, and I'm going to say I disagree with you on this, because Joe Rogan is a podcaster. He is the guy who likes UFC. He talks. Yes, he has a big following. So what? Why aren't we teaching people to better discern who you should be getting information from? Right? Why are we trying to make it seem like now that he has a big platform, now everything he says, he has to take, everything. At the same time, though, and here's why that also annoys me, is because let any of these Hollywood celebrities be like, let your kids pick your gender, and we know obviously it can lead to suicide, people mutilating their bodies when they're young, all of these things that are much more complex. We don't kill them. It's because they have an issue with this particular instance of him sharing his opinion.
You mean ban them?
Yeah, ban them. Exactly. Make them go away. But it's because of this particular instance, because it's surrounding big pharma. There's a lot more sensitivities. He gives his opinion about a ton of stuff. I mean, he could say, do yoga. He's talked about medicine. He's talked about psychedelics, whatever. It's a podcast. Let him have his opinion about things.
But Joe Rogan didn't get banned over him telling that story. Like, what I mean is, like, people who go on YouTube and tell people to do something. They're like, you should do this. Here's what you should do. I'm like, nah. Like, like if like Dr. Fauci going on TV and telling people what to do, there's going to be people who look when Donald Trump mentioned hydroxychloroquine, and then everyone started freaking out. What if people actually start eating fish food, like that one story, which turned out to be bunk, I guess? What's the difference between Dr. Fauci saying the same thing?
So then you also disagree with all the celebrities doing the photos of them getting the shot in the arm?
Well, when they tell you to go do something.
They do.
They should all be saying, ask your doctor if this is right for you. I know.
Yeah, so
it's
like Joe Rogan's getting hit for what everybody is doing, but if it's on the other end of the spectrum, it's fine. It's irresponsible for a bunch of people to be sticking their arms in and being like, get the vaccine. You know what I mean? Get the vaccine today. Did what I did today, got the shot. It's equally as irresponsible. In my opinion, raise smarter human beings. Okay? If you're so dumb that you think that every one of your life decisions should be informed by Joe Rogan, okay? You got a lot bigger, and no, but same to anybody, right? But I mean, not life decisions, but like medical decisions, right? Like anybody, or you, or me. Like if you're so dumb that you think that like everything you do should be exactly what Tim does or what Candace does or what Joe Rogan does, I'm throwing us all in the same box here, like, you know, then you probably shouldn't have the internet because you're a very malleable mind. Look. And like it's just not a safe place for you to be. Like you need a safe space.
Yes. I just mentioned how like earlier I was like I picked wild berries and then we cooked them. We made wild berry chicken. It was amazing. Like we cooked them down. We put some lemon juice in it. But
let one person do the wrong wild berry and there you go.
Yeah, I know.
Apparently
the white mulberries.
Ones.
Tim said to make wild berries and
I'm
I'm poisoned.
But remember the media was saying eat cicadas?
Yeah.
The whole time I'm like, no, don't eat bugs off the ground. They could be dirty. There's a story about a dude who ate like a slug on a dare and then got paralyzed and died.
Oh my gosh.
And you had a guy in Leesburg, Virginia.
I remember I read that story. It was crazy.
Yeah.
The guy, the slug?
Yeah.
There was a guy in Leesburg, Virginia who was filmed, I think it was by CNN, going out and picking cicadas off the wall and being like, I'm going to serve this to people.
I always wondered how over the thousands of human years of history, how we figured out what herbs are safe to eat. It's because people ate all the other ones.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Or even like, you know, the trending Kylie Jenner lip challenge, and now TikTokers dying. It's like you know, at a certain point, we just have to ask people to be a little smarter.
What's the Kylie
And then
Jenner?
we have to stop putting. There was the lip challenge where people were literally putting their bottles and their lips in bottles and getting stuck and having to go to the emergency room. I mean, there's like a whole crazy thing of people doing things because they find stuff on the internet. And at the end of all of these things, they always blame someone like Kylie Jenner, like Joe Rogan. And it's like, no, we just have to raise smarter people. You have to be able to discern, especially with so much information. Like you obviously are not following Joe Rogan because you're like if his name was Dr. Joe Rogan, like Dr. Joe Biden, I'd be like, you know, you're a little responsible because you're pretending to be a doctor, right? And like people might take what you're saying seriously, but like Joe has never pretended he was a medical doctor, and no one who is a fan of his would say he did, right? And no one who's following his stuff. So they're trying to say he's irresponsible, but I think that's a little and it's just not genuine to say that. It's a little disingenuous to say that.
I think we do have a problem with people just going online and then doing dumb stuff.
And now all of a sudden we're responsible, right? It's like, oh my God, like that's it. And it's like, that's not fair to us. That's not fair. It's like,
a lot of
just
weight.
Be smarter, you know, like be smarter. If you're looking for information, go see your doctor. I mean, that's kind of common sense. If you're looking for medical information, go see your doctor. Like I'm talking about my personal experience about Gardasil. Like, does that mean that every single person shouldn't get Gardasil? I don't know. Go pursue your own information, but don't say, well, it was irresponsible when Candace shared that story about Gardasil because she's not a doctor.
No,
it's like, no, dude, like I'm telling you what happened to me. You just talked about your tongue. Like I'm just so tired for like now we're all responsible for everybody else's.
It is
like
100% a double standard when a celebrity can tell someone to get medicated and then YouTube says you can't do that. YouTube says if you recommend these things, it's against the rules. And I'm like, but they pick and choose.
Right. Like, is it responsible when Lena Dunham posts and, you know, the whole fat positive movement, which makes me sick, right? Right. And like literally the number one killer, forget COVID-19, it's fat. Literally, the number one killer in America is heart disease, led from obesity.
Causes cancer.
Is it responsible? Causes cancer. Causes every bad ill. You know, really comes from being overweight. Is it responsible when Lena Dunham decides to put a post on Instagram about how much she loves her fat, or they start hashtags about fat positivity, and all these women talk about? And I'm not talking about a little extra curves. I'm talking about clinical obesity. Right? There's a literal clip. If you go to Lena Dunham's Instagram page, you can pull it up and look at it, of her writing this whole long diatribe about how happy she is to be fat and how we need to do this and we need to normalize fat. You're literally saying for people to normalize things that is the number one killer in America. Do I hear her being canceled? Do I hear her being banned? Or is she being asked to issue a statement? Oh, but Joe Rogan it's just
Yeah, if she was
foolish.
talking about sugar and aspartame and high fructose,
But
there'd probably be a
is.
lot more pushback. Oh, okay.
But she is, right?
but-
When you talk about clinical obesity, like, I mean, you have to see the picture, honestly. I don't know if you guys during this thing pop up and throw things up. You have to see what I'm talking about. This image that she put up, it's disgusting. It really is. And we've gone from love yourself in any size, meaning like, yeah, I agree with that. Like, some girls are curvy, some girls are thinner. Like, that's cool. But now we're talking about celebrating clinical obesity. And those people are never held responsible. In fact, it's the exact opposite. They're held up as brave. Read the articles. Brave, inspiring, so amazing. I love it.
I don't think I can put up that.
And you need to show it. You better show it.
What is it from?
It's from her Instagram page, and it's her
Recently?
sitting recently. Yeah, maybe like a month ago, but like I don't know that she posts too much. And I saw it, and I was like, any person who objectively knows about health knows that this is a bad way to program people and have kids in the comments going, "This is so brave. It's so inspiring." It's like, what is it inspiring you to do when someone who obviously has clinical obesity? This isn't like she's a couple of extra pounds. It's clinical obesity, and you're celebrating it. Joe Rogan. Lena Dunham.
No, but hold on. Here's my point. I don't think Lena Dunham should be going around telling people to be unhealthy and like giving them advice like you should eat garbage food and be unhealthy and not take care of yourself. And I don't think people should be recommending that people go do things. It's fine to have an opinion. It's fine to be like, here's what I think. Here's what happened to me. And
But he said in that clip, Joe said, you know, if you had asked me, I would say, no, you shouldn't do it if you're whatever age. He didn't say it in a way as if he was some great authority.
Yeah.
It was very much opinion, and he is an opinionator. I'm an opinionator. You're an opinionator.
Right. What I mean is, when a celebrity posts a photo saying go get the vaccine, when Fauci goes on TV and says everybody should go do it, I'm like, no,
That's
you
irresponsible.
should go talk to a doctor, because we have the story from people like Crowder. You have the story where people literally say, I went to my doctor said no. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And that might be your case. Maybe it's rare.
If you're
maybe it's not
pregnant,
true.
yeah, there's all sorts of different things, and yeah, but at the end of the day, I think we have to start having people be responsible for, like, you know, thinking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it kind of goes back to the master slave or leader follower conversation where, like, if you want to be a teacher, maybe you shouldn't be. Or if you want to be the president, you're probably not cut out for the job. If you're in a position of leadership like you are, or like Tim is, big time, you guys are, it's not like you want everyone to fall on every word you say, but they're going to.
I want people to think. And that's why when I do podcasts, I'm encouraging, like, from the beginning, talking about aliens. My whole mission is to make people think critically about even what I'm saying, right? So that's my goal. And I think that that's the role that we play as podcasters and commentators, is that we're taking the news and we're thinking critically about how we digest that news. And I think that's kind of the role that someone like Joe Rogan serves when he's talking about all these different topics. We're just thinking. And we can't make thinking and saying what your opinion is a crime.
How
you
would
know?
you define critical thinking?
These YouTube these big tech companies have zero faith in the average person, and they think that someone's going to watch Beavis and Butthead and then go play frog baseball, so they better tell everybody you can't do it. If we travel down that path, and we have been, then eventually you just get rid of all media. And then your movies will be like in that movie, The Invention of Lying, where it's a guy sitting in a chair in a white background just reading a piece of paper about history.
Anytime
Yeah.
it'll be like, warning, this is a joke.
But if we're
Anytime
being
someone's
honest,
joking.
though, it's not because they're afraid people are going to harm themselves. It's because, like I said, there's profit motives. And right now, you know, they're pretending they care about the irresponsibility of what Joe said. But in reality, they just want people to get the vaccine. And that's
they don't want
very
to get
apparent.
sued.
But you say that, but they don't care about that, right? Because if somebody does get injured from the vaccine, they don't care that people told you to get it. They care about you telling them not to get it. So it's actually, it's not because they care about being sued or they care about people's health. It's because their motive right now across the board, media and big tech, is to make people get the vaccine. It's in the DNA of their policies now. Facebook literally has, and you cannot say anything, even if it's true, that creates vaccine hesitancy,
Right, yeah.
right? So that's not them caring about us. It's not like they're just like, oh, we don't want to get sued, because then why can't they be sued if someone does get the vaccine and gets injured?
There's a law that was, I guess it's, if you get injured, you can't sue these companies.
Yeah, they're removed from liability. So it's not, and like I said, always follow the money. They're getting billions and billions and billions of dollars from big pharma. And so, I mean, I'm very aware that we're talking about, you know, when we were even talking about what Joe Rogan says is because he has too big of a platform for him to even introduce that perspective at all. It steps on the toes of important and powerful people. And in my opinion, we should always be able to think critically about everything.
Well, let's go to Super Chats, and we'll see what the audience has to say. If you haven't already, smash the like button, subscribe. And it's probably more important than ever that you go to timcast.com and become a member, because this whole conversation was definitely, you know, Icarus flying close to the sun. Maybe the wax wings will melt and we will fall, but then you'll find us at timcast.com. Worst case scenario is if we get a strike, we get taken off the air for a week. But it affects literally all of our YouTube channels.
Everyone that you are connected to?
That I run personally with me talking on it.
No.
I guess I could yeah, that's it. So it's like all my channels are. It's for a week, and then we would just do the website. So we'll be at timcast.com.
Right.
But let's read some of these super chats. See what we got going on.
Hope they're being nice. Sometimes they're mean.
It's a good conversation.
Just be nice to me, guys.
Falcon
much
Laser
love.
says Timcast and the Daily Wire need to team up to produce a movie about UFOs.
Yes.
Okay.
I'd be in. I don't know if like the rest of the I pitch them all the time on things we should do. Like I was like, I'm bringing the spice to Daily Wire. Let me tell you.
In the movie, you should play the president.
Yeah.
Because that way we're virtue signaling because we have a black female president.
Absolutely.
I
And
never
you
asked
actually
for
polled
this.
really high on
I
a
did.
poll about being president.
That's amazing.
Let's see. What is this? Alexander Scarpecci says, OMG, Candace Owens, I love you. What a great patriot. I can't wait to see her as president.
Thank you so much.
Woot do for you says, McAfee ain't dead. He just went home.
I saw a message there like McAfee did not uninstall himself.
That's really funny.
Orion Galaxy says, Candace, you'll always be McQueen.
Thank you so much.
There you go. Egg and Spoon Racer says, aliens refuse to make first contact until we agree to use their correct pronouns.
Oh, that's
That's all it is?
Can we pronounce those?
Yeah.
yeah, probably not.
Whatever their pronouns are, Z, Zer, Zem. What if that was really like the big thing is that they're gearing up for these pronouns because the aliens have like 12 genders?
Oh.
It's like high pitch frequency, but we don't know how to make it that noise with our bodies yet.
Yeah.
Zerm. Daniel Gao says, Candace and Tim, two of my absolutely favorite people. You both have inspired me. I'm currently reading Anything I Can by Thomas Sowell and will be starting my own podcast on the news from a biblical perspective this fall. Thank you for your examples.
Yeah,
Hey,
that's
there
a
you
good
go.
Thomas Sowell, man. You read one Thomas Sowell book, you will never come back.
That dude is a
Smart.
genius.
He's just his book smacked me into a different reality.
Which one?
The first one I read was Race and Economics. Economics and Race might be my flip. That's incredible. It just destroys every race argument because he is like, hi, America. Let's look at these global arguments. Like, let's
Yeah.
globalize the arguments that you're having in America. And, starts from the very beginning, like versus like the whole fallacy of believing that because you're a minority, somehow you're disadvantaged. He's like, that's been disproven all across the world at every at every facet of society, that actually minorities tend to get ahead. And he just kind of starts there, right?
Oh, is
You
it
know-
because they're more cohesive?
Yeah, well, it's just like in every society. I mean, you'd be shocked, in every empire who was controlling the banks. I mean, he just goes and just obliterates any of the race arguments that we're having today, and you realize that it's all built upon a house of cards. And people just know very little about everything. I mean, even like slavery. Slavery wasn't predicated on race. The truth is that Black Americans, not Black Americans, Black Africans were brought over here because we were immune to yellow fever, which the Native Americans had. So we were just a better breed,
Oh, yeah.
better stock of slaves to have. And slavery obviously was everywhere in the
Yeah,
world.
the Romans would enslave anyone.
Yeah, of
You know-
course. Egyptians were
Slavs.
enslaving.
Yeah.
Slavery started with Muslims. And so he just kind of just takes you all through history, and you're like, wow, everything I learned in school was a lie.
You know whose story I really, really loved was Herman Cain's.
I love him.
I watched that documentary, Uncle Tom.
Yeah, I was in it.
Yeah. It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Herman Cain, man, what an amazing
Incredible.
story.
Yeah,
What an
all of
amazing
that,
guy.
all of them. I mean,
Yeah.
Clarence Thomas. I mean, Shelby Steele. Their stories. I read their books because these people that are so castigated in the media, and they have lived through so much. I mean, Condoleezza Rice. They grew up in actual segregation, and they're called racists. And people are just so polluted and so dumb, really, that they just accept that. Well, Clarence Thomas obviously grew up in segregation. He just wants more of it. Now it's like, come on, man.
It's so easy to believe what you're told, what I'm told. It's also kind of easy to question everything. So there's a balance. Sometimes you just gotta trust. Sometimes.
Vanessa Stoller says, it is completely insane that Candace Owens is having a conversation with Ian regarding electricity and has kept Tim quiet for more than 2 minutes. I am in complete awe. Candace, you are awesome.
Are you gonna install the neural net after they work out the kinks?
Yeah, 100%.
Nice. Let's do it.
I hope that the first half an hour of the show is the most confusing thing to the political
Gonna be
journalists.
like, what is happening?
How do we smear Candace for her opinions on electricity and
Aliens.
Thomas Edison?
Yeah, they'll figure it out.
Do you meditate?
I don't actually, but I love Bikram yoga.
Oh
So
yeah.
I guess it's kind of a moving
Yes.
meditation.
It is
Yeah.
so good.
B. Anderson says, didn't Nikola Tesla invent a way to give people free energy, then get squashed by big money?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of conspiracy theories out about him being killed. And so the answer is yes.
He was working on sending electricity through the ground,
That's
but
exactly
people were
right.
kind of afraid. They're like, what if it...
Well, they started a big, the propaganda, the newspapers. J.D. Rockefeller got out and started saying a bunch of stuff about Nikola Tesla and how it was going to, if his circuit, the way that he was going to circuit it was different. If that got out, things would blow up, people would die. So it was always, fear has always been used as a tactic to control the masses and into making decisions.
And like blackout, like Nassim Haramein is a quantum physicist of the day. He's working on how to get energy out of the vacuum. But
Yeah.
like, where is that in the media? Like,
Right.
they don't want to slander the guy. They just want you to not know who
To not know
Nassim
about
Haramein
it.
is, but look up Nassim. He's great.
William S. says, Ian is the Fox Mulder of our generation. Please create the Crossland files. I want to believe in graphene.
This was it. Question everything is too extreme. Let's find a balance.
It's not. It's just think. It's not even like you have to question it, but like I just think, right? Like, oh, like I said, like a thought is, does Jeff Bezos really want to help me turn my lights on? That's a thought,
And like look at the past and think why? Why was the Bible written as it was? Let's try and figure out if that was real life and this is a book written about it. What was it really?
So in reference to that Little Green Men thing with Mark Milley, Aaron J. says, Milley is talking about hybrid warfare and little green men in the strategic way to refer to soldiers that are non-attributable to specific countries. But little green men?
Yeah,
It's
like
a
little
weird way
soldiers.
to say it.
It's like
Yeah.
racist, isn't it?
Why
not-
green? I don't
And
know.
why not
little?
just say soldiers?
Oh, I was thinking it was Homo florensis, those old hominids that got extinct. What if they found advanced technology and went underground and now they're
that's
flying
probably it.
around in
There's
spaceships?
a
Just kidding.
conspiracy theory that a species of dinosaur lived in caves when the meteor hit and went deep into like cave systems and then evolved to become super intelligent, but they can't go to the surface because the sunlight would burn them. So they live in giant underground cities.
Oh,
And
that's
there's
so
one
fun.
underneath the Denver International
Of course
Airport.
there is, yeah.
Talk about
Oh, wait,
someone
okay,
working hard
stop.
to write that.
I don't know about the dinosaur part, but let me tell you, the Denver airport, like all the questions around Denver airport are legitimately interesting and you should look them up.
What is it?
Okay,
Basically,
so-
there was just no reason to have the airport built. They did build all this entire underground system and they just didn't use it. Like, I mean, just like, it's incredible. Like, actually, I don't even know what the conspiracy theory is, but there's a lot of question marks
Okay.
about the building of the Denver airport. And now every time I'm there, I'm like, whoa.
I am from Colorado, and I have heard, my understanding is that there's a heavy influence of the military. Colorado is such a heavily military state, and I'm willing to bet that it's in some way connected to Cheyenne Mountain. I've heard that there's a direct line from DIA to Cheyenne Mountain.
There's definitely something
Yeah,
underneath
which
Denver
could be.
Airport. Now, I don't know about dinosaurs that
Right,
can't
yeah,
put their head up,
dinosaurs, maybe not.
but there's definitely, like, they just, like, built all this up and then said, oh, never mind, we can't use it. And everything surrounding the permits built it was just weird, shady. I've heard, like, a conspiracy theory that it's because, like, the wealthiest people, if they ever need to get out, that's where they would go.
sense.
Because it's kind of, like, in the middle of, like, yeah. But I don't know if any of that's true, but there is interesting facts about the building of a Denver airport that are, if you have just, like to bend your brain a bit, that's a fun one to look at.
Super fun. All right. Joshua Albritton says, Candace, please be Trump's VP so my beloved Florida doesn't lose DeSantis. Or you can come replace him as Florida's governor and he can be VP. I'm good with either.
Well, I don't live in Florida, so I don't think I could become governor. But I agree with you very much that DeSantis should never run as VP. I mean, that would be such a waste of DeSantis. And, I was saying before we went live on this that DeSantis single-handedly ended the pandemic totalitarianism by keeping Florida a free state. And the measures that he took made it impossible for other states to keep pursuing their lockdowns, because he proved that the lockdowns weren't necessarily helping in terms of spreading. In terms of stopping the spread of the virus. So there were so many things that he did. He has been a phenomenal governor. And I know I can't sing his praises enough, and I totally agree that people that are asking for him to run with Trump, I'm just like, you are missing the forest for the trees on that one.
What if he runs as president?
If he ran as president, I mean, he would. I personally think that Trump's going to run again in 2024. But if he ran as president, I would very much support Governor DeSantis
He's been
for
great.
president.
Oh, yeah.
I guess just Ron DeSantis in that point.
I
for
kept thinking it was
president.
Rhonda. I was like, who's this Rhonda guy?
Ron DeSantis.
He's been
Yeah.
amazing. He's been amazing.
JB says, how typical. A talk for money grifter helping another talk for money grifter stay relevant.
Thank
Dude,
you.
it took like 3 years for me to finally figure out what grifter meant. Me and my husband just thought it was so funny. We're like, what's grifting? Like, what's a grifter?
What is it exactly?
And then so now me and my husband always say to each other, like, for anything, we're like, grifter's got a grift. Grifter's got a grift.
Yeah.
Griffa.
It's
I
like
guess it's like they're saying you're inauthentic and you're just saying things for money.
Yeah.
The money would really be there. If I wanted to make money, being a black liberal is the way to go. Just so we're clear, right?
yeah.
Like, just so we're very clear. Like, the idea that somehow it's easier to make money as a black conservative than as a black liberal, they would be handing me accolades. Like, could you imagine me as the black liberal? Like, I would be like,
Yeah.
they would have me giving Oscar speeches. Like, I would be everywhere.
Huge MSNBC
nonstop.
TV show.
Oh my God, I have my own
Imagine-
show on
imagine
CNN,
if-
MSNBC, everything.
Imagine if Kanye came out with a big message about supporting Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
What would they have said about it?
He's the smartest, most brilliant. I mean,
right.
it's such a joke. The concept that to make the money, the quick buck, you go and become a black conservative. Oh, okay, cool. All the media is against you. That's the easiest route to go.
That's the funniest thing. They're like, it's
just makes
grifting.
no sense.
Yeah, like, why would you want to go against the machine?
Yeah, the machine will put you up. It's the machine. Like, so
Right.
it's just, again, people don't like to think. So
Let me risk my livelihood and you
and
know,
everything. I mean,
my
like,
home.
yeah, your everything is risked when you come out and you speak out as a black conservative.
What's being risked by these socialist YouTubers who are like, I agree with Amazon.com and Walmart.com. My opinions are not controversial in any way.
Right,
I'm
right.
like, you risk nothing.
Nothing.
And they get propped up by YouTube.
Nope.
You look
Algorithms
Yeah.
put them at the top. Every time you search them, it's like, follow this celebrity who's saying every single thing that we agree with.
exactly. They can come out and they can give medical advice and it's fine.
Yeah, no question.
Wonderful.
I love that Dr. Bill Gates has given so much advice on what we should do.
I loved the meme where it was like Joe Rogan and Bill Gates both gave medical advice,
Right.
and Bill Gates was propped up and championed by the media, and Joe Rogan was like insulted and they criticized him.
Right. Here's my opinion. My opinion is we shouldn't listen to either of their opinions. We should listen to them because we're like, okay, I want to follow this guy. I want to follow this guy. But they are equally as legitimate. So it's like I didn't spaz out and say like, okay, Bill Gates should not be allowed to even give his opinion. So why are people spazzing out if Joe Rogan gives his opinion?
It's an interesting ability to be able to listen to somebody but not let it rewrite your brain.
Right. That's a talent. That's my talent. I listen to people and it doesn't rewrite my brain.
Superpower.
That is my superpower.
All right.
I always thought I wanted to be Mystique, but
This is
Yeah.
better.
What's Mystique's superpower?
She
I
shapeshifts.
hate when people say
Yeah,
this.
she shape changes.
Not a single person at the Daily Wire knew who Mystique was.
Wow.
Like I never
No.
even heard of her.
I hate to
till
say this. I shouldn't be
the
giving
last
out
decade
Daily
or
Wire
something.
dirty secrets,
wow.
but like not a single one. Not Andrew Clavin, not Michael Knowles, not Ben Shapiro. Nobody knew who Mystique was, and it hurt my heart because I'm such a big X-Men fan.
Yeah.
Like I'm an X-Men dweeb, and
you-
I was like, but not
You know-
not
you know-
Jennifer Lawrence. She ruined Mystique.
You know what I wonder?
Rebecca Romaine Stamos as Mystique. Wow.
When Mystique is like, she's naked, right? When she
Yes.
shapeshifts and then she's in clothes, is that clothes like her skin? You know what I mean? Like if you were to cut the clothing, would the clothing bleed?
That's such an interesting question. No, I think the second you cut it, then she turns back into the lizard.
The lizard?
Well, she's kind
Or
of a
whatever
lizard.
Blue
she is, yeah,
skinned.
scaly.
She's scaly.
Scale.
Yeah.
All right, Marty Toro Jr. says, Tim, if you fire subsonic rounds through a sound suppressor, it is as quiet as a sneeze. I am active duty military, and I have footage of this. I've seen footage
Cool.
of like super quiet suppressed rounds, like subsonic, but it's not like pew, pew, pew. I've not seen that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Have
but
you not seen a James Bond film? I just can't understand. I keep saying
I
it's
have. It's just not
craziness.
real life.
What do you mean it's not real life? What do you say?
Wait, is this not real life?
What?
It's real
James
life.
Bond is not real life.
This
Are you
is
saying
real.
Mystique doesn't exist?
Are you not real, Lydia?
Whoa.
You really are a conspiracy theorist.
Right?
There's no Mystique. There's no Magneto.
Gosh.
Wow.
Unacceptable.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Carmela comedian says, dude, my psychic is on point. I was just thinking earlier today when Candace Owens was going to make her way to Timcast, and boom, here she is.
Can she tell us more psychic stuff?
Yeah, give me the lottery numbers.
Yeah, come on. Yeah, something.
I want to win $500 million and then retire.
Exactly. All I get from your psychic abilities is I'm on Timcast. I want to be a billionaire.
Yeah.
Give us the
Do you ever
lottery
have
number.
like psychic premonitions?
No, I don't have psychic premonitions. I
Or,
have
like
good
communicate
instincts.
with people with your thoughts?
I wish I could, but no, I don't have any powers.
You can.
Yeah.
Kev says, Ian, this is for you because you rock. Please show Mr. Poole the videos. He'll be surprised. I've been heavy into pew-pews for 35 years, and even I'm learning something new every week. P.S. Original Voltron was 15 vehicles that made one mech.
What? I thought it was 5.
Wow.
Is he talking about the suppressor videos? I'd be
Yeah,
down
I
to watch
guess.
something like that. I've never seen it.
Yeah. Mike West says, well, I can't read that. YouTube will ban me. Sorry, dude. Eric A says, Tim, I'm surprised you missed this story. Amazon donated hundreds of copies of Ibram X. Kendi book to Virginia Public School. Turns out they are teaching critical race theory. And then they go, Ibram X. Kendi's not a critical race theorist. He's just a guy who writes ideology that was inspired by critical race theory and is adopting those ideologies.
And now go ask any of those children who Plato was, who Aristotle was, who Socrates was. They have no idea. 'cause
no,
it's
they
all
will. A
about
white
creating,
supremacist.
Yeah, it's all about creating the modern far left person that just listens to the government, who sees the problems everywhere except for where it is, which is the fact that, government is growing itself exponentially. And they're just
Right.
creating people that will plug themselves into government. And to get a little deeper on that, the entire concept of why they're making kids stupid, right? And so imagine being a kid, you go through the school system, you then go and you get your bachelor's degree, then you go get your master's degree, and you get your master's degree in something that's literally stupid. Like, you can get a master's degree in gender studies, which is just like, that's really stupid. It's a lot of money to spend on such stupidity.
And then demand the government pay it back.
And then you cut out of school, you've got all of these student loans, and you realize you can't get a job because it turns out that nobody needs the person to tell them 27,000 genders, but the kid that you went to high school with that didn't go to college and can fix an AC is making a ton of money.
Yep.
Well, that instantly creates a very angry citizen. And they're mad at the system. They're mad at something, and they have to channel that anger somewhere, because they either can become a professor or they become failures. And if you want to know why so many of these Antifa types who are blowing up, police vehicles are college educated, it's because they're angry. They're angry because they're convinced of their own intelligence, right? Because I've got this many degrees. I've got a degree in this. I've got a degree in that. They're passionately stupid.
Midwits.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. I like that.
Ralph Nesbitt says, Ian, it was Battle of the Planets, the 70s Power Rangers.
Nice.
That was the first one?
I guess so, yeah.
The Raptors Talon says, I had a Samsung Galaxy S8 for years and was forced to upgrade after T-Mobile bought out Sprint. The official reason was because it was outdated. Coincidence? I think not.
No.
Planned obsolescence.
Yeah, that's concerning.
Yeah, that's corruption in capitalism. Capitalism is supposed to be you invent a light bulb that lasts forever and you become rich and everyone celebrates the new innovation. Instead, we get failing light bulbs and then everyone's got to buy a new one every week.
Yeah, money, baby.
I heard there's a move to make right of repair legal. Have you guys heard about this? And
Right
that's
to repair.
Right to repair, which means that like you have the right to get all the parts for this, whereas before they're proprietary. You have to send it back to the company and they'll fix it for you and send it back to you.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of
Interesting.
decentralizing repair.
That's actually
All right.
interesting.
Charlie Alpha says, retired military pilot and the scariest thing I ever did. Start a trucking company between jobs. Independence is scary, but so rewarding. We must have courage as evil triumphs if good men do nothing.
That's exactly right, and it's so true. It's scary. You take risks, but big risks equal big rewards. And by the way, you're allowed to fail. People are very scared to fail. I've failed so much in my life, and what happens when you fail and you get back on, the figurative horse, the figurative bike, is that then you develop more of immunity of like, oh, sometimes you try things and they don't work out. And now society is built around people being too afraid to fail. And like, failure is good. That's how you learn. I mean, virtually every person that really made it in life failed at some point before.
Yep.
But now they don't want kids thinking like, they just go to college, get a degree, or else you're going to be a failure. And actually, no, you're going to be a failure if you don't try to do things outside of the box, the establishment box.
A non-failure isn't a success necessarily. You can be a non-failure and still not succeed. A D- isn't going to make you a success.
You likely will not
Necessarily.
succeed unless you've had failures.
Yeah.
Unless you're the rare lucky person who went to bought a lottery ticket.
Right. It's so true.
Yeah.
So true.
Robert Adams says, this is the problem in living in a world with too many lawyers, making us believe opinions should be sued, no personal responsibility.
Yeah.
That is,
Yeah.
I agree with that, yeah.
Litigious culture.
Everybody's gonna sue
Someone
everybody.
just tried to sue me over an opinion.
Did really? Can you talk about it?
Yeah, what was the whole Kimberly Klasick thing that happened? Me and her got into like a whole tiff online, and like I started looking into her FEC filing. It's like the new scam right now. Like probably just so not aware of it. Like there's a bunch of people that are pretending to run for office in districts that they know they can't win, and they just raise a ton of money and keep running and running and running. And I just sort of looked into this and like looked at her FEC filings, and all of this money was going off to defunct businesses and like defunct.
Whoa, what?
I just exposed it all, and exposed the fact that she used to be a stripper, which nobody knew, who popped up. And I was just like, in my opinion, like when I think of a strip club, I think of money laundering. That's what made me go check her FEC filings. And I exposed it all. And then like she had her lawyer try to get me to take down the video by being like, your opinion that she used to, saying that she was like the weirdest thing. They were like the madame at the strip club. And I'm like, they were trying to make it seem like I meant like a human trafficker, madame. And I didn't mean that. I meant like her husband was the manager of the strip club, and like she got people to strip there, and they like did this whole thing. And I was like, no, sorry, if you're going to sue me, go for it. Like, people have a right to know the truth. You don't even care about this one sentence. You're just trying to get the whole FEC filings thing taken down.
For better or for worse, a lot of these opinion things just never make it past motion to dismiss. It just, they're gone.
Yeah, no, it's like the new thing is like people. Yeah, it's these same people that say they believe in free speech that will try to shut it down, to protect themselves and their grift. As I learned this new word too. I mean, the same stuff with the Nicole Arbor stuff. She was trying to like, oh, have a lawyer send it. I was like, send it. Like, somebody talking about what you're doing, and now it's the way that they protect themselves is everyone thinks you're afraid when you send a legal letter, and it's like the truth is the truth. That is.
You're fighting with Nicole Arbor as well?
Yeah, I got into a whole big thing with her. Talk about the ultimate, like, grifter. Like, just pretending to be conservative once liberals had her figure it out. And and so she kind of rebranded as a Trump supporter. Nobody really looked into her, and there was a whole history of YouTubers. Like, I don't follow, like I was saying to you, like too much on YouTube, but I then did follow that there was a lot of men speaking up and saying like these crazy things happened with her, but then she sent a legal letter to get them to take the videos down and like crazy stuff. And I was just like, nah, nothing I hate more, let me talk about things I'm passionate against, than the Me Too type women who, like, every time a man says anything, then they do like the I was scared for my life and like that turned me into a dragon, because men are not able to defend themselves right now, and women know that. And she did the dirtiest thing ever to Ryan Upchurch, who's like a country rap star, and like literally he had to hand in his guns, like, because she wanted a video taken down. And so the way that she thought to do it was to file an emergency injunction to get him to take down the video. And so for those who don't know, an emergency injunction, like, I saw the video that he did, and it was shocking because it proved like how much of a liar she was, right? So his video goes up, he like is, it's like boys, girls, tiff, whatever. He's showing a text message showing that like everything she said was a lie. And so it was so damaging to her career that she wanted the video turned down. So she went to a domestic violence clinic. He never hit her, nothing, and said like, what do I do? And they said, you can file an emergency injunction, and then until the judge can look at the case, he'll have to take down the video. They'll take his guns, like all of this stuff. She did this, right? And like, so he had to take down the video. They took his guns, all of this stuff. Now it's been resolved, and the judge wrote back a thing being like, she has a credibility issue. He looked into it, but she still got what she wanted. The video was taken down, and he got his guns back and all that stuff. And like, so I used my platform to defend him. Like, I didn't know him, but I just hate seeing men being pigeonholed. It's just like, it's what's going on with men right now. It's just women are like really just taking advantage of being crazy. And who it hurts when you do stuff like that? Real domestic violence.
It hurts everybody. It's the country.
It hurts the country, but it really, especially women that have legitimate domestic violence claims, like when you start using this as a way to, I hate this guy, so I'm going to say, oh, it was abusive. Like what, Tim did to me. Like, he offered me a slushie. He's got a slushie machine downstairs. It was pretty good.
Cherry lemonade, right?
But it's a new culture of that too, and Me Too. And I talk a lot about toxic feminism, and that's my second book is on that. And there's a lot of that now going around.
Yep. All right, Sidekick says, I think aliens won't deal with us until there's a unified world. One language, one currency, one leader, etc. Could explain the power struggles these days. I said that the last time I was on the Joe Rogan podcast. I was like, we're never going to meet the aliens because the Galactic Federation doesn't want to deal with a bunch of different countries. We need one unified planet to join the Federation. And Joe said, I don't think there's a Galactic Federation.
You got him to be
I was like, I know, I was kidding.
I think that we could be unified with a lot of leaders and a lot of currencies, like a decentralized union.
All right, let's see what we got. Basassin says, Candace is an honest soul.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I try to be. I think a lot of times my honesty gets me in trouble, but it's the only thing I know. And I always say there's a Kanye line, speaks to my soul. He says in one of his songs, I suffer from realness. Man, I feel that line. Right. I suffer from it. I'm like, I gotta say it. So nobody's saying it, so I have to say it.
That's why meditation's so awesome, because you have no thoughts. You can like choose when to think.
But I'm naturally a fighter, and I hate dishonesty, and I just see it everywhere. And it's like, I'm fighting Facebook fact checkers. I'm obviously in lawsuit with them, like taking these women that do the false accusing women, but it all matters to me because it's just like, I just want the society to be better for my son to grow up in. Like, and all of this is a threat to my son. Like, like the society that we got to have childhoods and make mistakes, even like the cancel culture of like, he tweeted this when he was 13 years old. Like, I speak out against everything because I just want the world to be better.
Were you like that when you were little? Or
yeah, I came out like this.
Did you get pushed around when you were a kid, like bullied and stuff?
No, I was like, I was the no nonsense toddler, like telling adults what was up. Like, you are trying to manipulate me. I was like, no. And my dad and mom used to have to close the door and laugh because I would like demand a further conversation. I hated manipulation. So like, they'd be like, don't do this. Santa's not going to come. And I'd be like, well, then you tell Santa I said not to come. Like,
wow.
Then I don't want his presents.
Yeah. I want an explanation for why I have to do this.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right. Delon Smythe says, YouTube, quote, when you send a message here, people will be able to see that you subscribe. That's a mafia level threat. Actually, it's this really cool thing. Apparently, you can make it so that if you want to chat, you got to be a subscriber.
Boom, boom,
That's
done.
it. You just got to click a little button.
Yeah.
That works. Because there's a lot of spam bots that come in. They don't subscribe. They just post stupid things about getting rich quick or whatever.
Oh, I thought it was a member, just a subscriber.
Oh, yeah, that's smart.
Yeah, you
that's a
just click
great
the
way
subscribe
to
button
get the
and then you're
trolls
good.
out. Yeah, that's really smart.
Super simple. A regular person can just click the button, and you should subscribe and like this video. All right. JK Wynn says, have any of you heard about energy companies in Texas changing people's thermostats in their homes? Tech automation is like security. Higher security, less convenient. Higher convenience, less secure. This I understand to be a true story, but it's something they signed up for. So you can sign up to get a discount, and they have smart thermostats. So the company can set your thermostat for you, and then you save money. It's like a cheaper bill or something.
Yeah. No, I haven't heard of that. Well, fun fact, speaking about the green lobby, like, all these people that are like climate change, blah, blah, blah. Do you know, I know a bunch of people that work in the industry. Conservatives are actually the people that use the most clean energy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
They
talk about it, but they don't commit to it. So they're not the ones that are driving around the Teslas. And so I thought it was very interesting when they told me that. They said, yeah, if they're in sales, and obviously, so they have like all the data, and they are much more likely going to a Republican and selling it. Like my husband and I are going to do like a kind of a half. We're looking like a little bit solar, like half solar, like not completely reliant on solar. And he's like, and I said, so people might think that's unusual. And he said, nope. Anybody on the industry knows that the leftists yap about it, and the conservatives commit to it.
Think about this. Big cities, tons of pollution. Mm-hmm. Big cities, police problems. Mm-hmm. It's all the Democrat people who live there who complain about this. Where do conservatives live? They live in rural areas. They tend to. So people in rural areas tend to have their own gardens, their own food, have chickens, tend to chop their own wood. I should say. So you're more likely going to find environmentally conscious conservatives than liberals. But I will say, perhaps you will find most liberals claiming to be environmentally
conscious.
That's
what he's saying. They yap it, but they don't actually talk the talk. They don't actually walk the walk. They talk the talk. They don't walk the walk. Conservatives walk the walk and don't talk the talk, which is like, and I was just like, what? And he's like, I can send you tons of data on it. Like, it's like one of the big media, like, propaganda efforts to make you think that because they talk about it, they're living their life like that, and they just don't.
Yeah, when there's a problem, people will be like, that's a problem. But when everything's working properly, you don't point it out necessarily.
Right.
Daniel Bundrick says, if Ian's beauty filter video mentioned yesterday gets more views than CNN's primetime viewership, I'll double this super chat. It's really, really funny. Like, the primetime viewership in the key demo for CNN, MSNBC on weekends is like 50 to 60K.
I know, it's like very easy. That's not a hard feat. I mean, like, Brian Stelter, Jake Tapper, like, nobody. I get more views. I could do one Instagram video right now and I get more views.
Yep,
like, nobody, which should really tell you where the society is at. They know it's propaganda. They're not interested anymore.
They sacrificed. I used to have CNN running. I'd be working and I have CNN on the background because it'd be like, a storm would hit and they'd be like, there's a storm in Atlanta. And then one day I realized they were just talking about Trump nonstop. It was like they eventually stopped doing any real reporting. Veritas exposed this when they had a technical director or some sort. Somebody said, we used to go on the ground and do reporting. Now we just do panels about Trump. Mm-hmm. So I turned it off. So I was never a big fan of CNN, but I would leave it on because at least I talk about news. I started talking about Trump 24/7. I turned it off. I've never looked back.
Yeah.
They decided to chase the anti-Trump audience, and now that Trump is gone, they have no audience left.
Right. That's exactly right.
It's crazy that Ian, we can make a video where it's like Ian talking about space chimps or something.
Yeah.
And it'll beat
real news.
CNN primetime viewership.
The real news.
Yeah.
Dude.
The real news.
I'm looking forward to space chimps, man.
Yeah.
I love
Space
that.
chimps.
Yes.
Dude, the first animal in space was a chimp from Earth, or was it a monkey or something that the Russians fired off into space? Didn't make it. Didn't survive it.
All right, we'll just do a couple more. The Prick says, YouTube won't let me comment in comment section. Says it's because I subbed to this channel while watching a video made for kids. What? That's weird.
Weird.
All right, Turk Longwell says, damn, is Candace standing up for everything and everyone not the best thing ever? Holy shoot. Candace is amazing. Please keep it up, Candace. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Right on. Well, absolutely. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah.
That
This has been a
awesome.
blast.
Yeah.
We're going to have a bonus segment up at timcast.com. So make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, go to timcast.com, become a member, and that's where we're going to say, all we're going to do is we're going to press record and then say just a stream of things YouTube bans you for. That's the point of the website.
Yes.
You can follow the show on Facebook and Instagram at Timcast IRL. You can follow me personally at Timcast. Did you want to shout anything out? I think everybody knows who you are.
Yeah. Join Parler. My husband's a CEO. I do have a Twitter, unbeknownst to Ian. You can follow me there.
I found out.
He found out, and we're very proud of him. We've made a long 2 hours for him to find that out. And yeah, buy my book Blackout because I'm so close to passing 500,000 copies.
Wow.
Yeah, so I need to sell 20,000 more copies to pass 500,000 copies, and I want to celebrate 500,000 copies. So for that reason. It's also a really good book, and I actually wrote it, and I didn't use a ghostwriter, which nobody does in politics. It's actually written by me, read by me. So buy it just so I can get this little accolade in my head. They don't send me anything, but it just means something to me.
Where's the best place people can get Blackout?
I hate to say Amazon, but SimonandSchuster.com, and you can get it from Amazon. You can get it anywhere. Target is where people are picking them up like hotcakes and playing the Blackout game, which is where you find my book and you black out somebody else, like Chrissy Teigen. See, I'm fighting every war. Yeah.
I just wish we'd talk more about lasers and psychedelics and monsters from space or something.
Yeah,
but maybe we can get into that later.
Next time.
Make a movie about it.
Yeah.
I'm Ian Crossland. Thank you for coming. And you can find me at iancrossland.net and at Ian Crossland on all social media. I love you.
I am so glad we were able to have this genre-busting conversation with the Spice Queen of the Daily Wire. This has been a ton of fun, and I'm really looking forward to our bonus segment. You guys need to sign up for the site for sure. And you guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter at Sour Patch Lids, as I'm attempting to outstrip Sour Patch Kids in followers.
We will see you all over at timcast.com. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye, guys.